England secured their place in the World Cup quarter-finals with a 3-0 win against Senegal.
Good morning to you. It's 6 o'clock on Monday, the 5th of December. This is Breakfast on GB News with Isabel and Stephen.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. The Three Lions have made it through to the World Cup quarter-finals, where they'll face reigning champions France on Saturday. England's 3-0 win against Senegal last night saw captain Harry Kane score his first goal of the tournament.
The Labour Party will this morning launch a new report on the country's future, with Sir Keir Starmer promising the biggest ever transfer of power to the British people. The recommendations include handing more lawmaking controls to local mayors and major reforms to the House of Lords.
And the RMT has rejected an improved pay offer designed to try and avert 8 days of highly disruptive strike action over Christmas. The group representing train companies said the proposal included an increase of 8% over 2 years.
I'd love to hear from you this morning, particularly messages of joy or relief about the football. Let's have something to smile about and keep that going a little bit, should we? Make the most of it.
Yes.
If you want to get in touch, you know how to do it. Drop us an email, gbviews@gbnews.uk.
So it is our top story this morning. England have progressed to the World Cup quarter-finals after a comfortable 3-0 victory over Senegal.
Well, captain Harry Kane scored his first goal of the tournament, but it was 19-year-old Jude Bellingham who impressed with a man-of-the-match display in the heart of the Three Lions midfield.
Well, Gareth Southgate and his side have now faced their toughest test yet when they take on reigning world champions France, with a place in the semi-finals at stake.
Well, there might be one or two sore heads on the commute this morning. When people are heading into work, you would imagine so. Understandable. England fans were out in droves in pubs and fan zones last night. So our reporter Will Hollis joined the party.
It might be 4 degrees, but a Winter World Cup isn't all that bad.
Nice and cold out here, but I'm sure it's warm there.
I'm excited to see Phil Foden and Jack Grealish.
I've got my gloves, so warm me up, got the bib. Doesn't matter what the weather is. Doesn't matter. It's England, isn't it?
We could do a gazebo, though.
We could do a gazebo.
It's not the cold that's got England fans shivering at the Trent Navigation in Nottingham. There's a different kind of tension in the knockout stages. The Lions may have finished top of their group, but Senegal are champions in Africa.
I'd like to think we can win 2-0. 1-0 will do.
If we attack with a bit of freedom tonight, I think we'll do perfectly fine.
They're going to win the first half, lose the second half, but win the match.
What does that mean?
They're going to win.
A sluggish start, but then England find their feet. Once, and then again in the first half.
We've got 2 in the bag. I'm feeling positive. I'm calm now. I hope we win 5-0.
I went to the toilet twice and missed both of them. I'm really not happy about it. But it's coming home, so it don't matter.
As the beer flows, so do the goals. The ending is inevitable now. England 3, Senegal 0.
We won, we're through to the next round.
I was confident, and the boys, they performed.
England march on with old rivals in sight. The last time they played France in a World Cup, England won. That was 1982. This time, France are reigning champions.
We're going to play France, we're going to beat them, man. If we go toe-to-toe with them, then we'll beat them. If we go defensive, then we'll lose.
But for now, that doesn't stop the singing. Will Hollis for GB News in Nottingham.
Well, joining us now for some reaction, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, the Navigation's a great pub.
Yeah,
Let's
that's
just
having a
point
good
it out.
time.
It's worth going if you're up there.
We're going to go to Doha now and speak to the sports journalist and broadcaster Chris Scudder, who is there for us. Do you know what? It's nerve-wracking now, isn't it? It's getting really frightening. In those first sort of 30 minutes of the match, it was toe-to-toe last night, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, a few bleary eyes. Of course, the game finished around midnight here last night. Not too much beer flowing here, but the England fans who have made the pilgrimage here had a terrific night as well. And very noticeable. I was in the stadium, how much support there was for England from the massive Asian contingent here, Indians, Pakistanis, people from the Middle East supporting England. It was a strange atmosphere. And that first half hour, you're right, was really quite tense. But you just got that feeling that England had too much quality. And once that first goal went in, and Jude Bellingham was brilliant last night, just 19 years old and getting rave reviews, as he has done for the last year or two since he broke through as a 16-year-old at Birmingham City. He was terrific, and Harry Kane getting that first goal as well of the tournament. So, you know, England did what we thought they would do, to be honest. It was against a good side in Senegal, but England had, for me, have got their strongest squad now for many years. The depth on the bench is very, very telling. And you heard it in the piece there, France next. This is where it all starts. The serious stuff really starts now. England have beaten some of the, not weak sides, but sides they ought to beat. And the real questions are going to come at the weekend when they take on France.
That's the big one. And, I mean, the pressure on the boys, obviously, but the pressure on the manager too, you know, whether he takes a different approach when it comes to France, or whether he sticks with what he's been doing now, you know, the good starters, the good finishers, and keeping that momentum going.
Yeah, I mean, Gareth Southgate was criticised after the Euros when they should have won that final against Italy, and they were too negative. Same criticisms in the last World Cup, the semi-final against Croatia, when they were leading, sat back, have a rather defensive formation. But for this World Cup, he's changed that. Now, whether that's pressure from the media or public pressure, England's best players are offensive. We've seen it so far. They've scored 12 goals, the most in this World Cup. I don't think he'll change it now, because should he go back and start worrying about the opposition, they'll lose, in my opinion. Now, France present all kinds of different things, because they've got the world's best player at the moment, Kylian Mbappe, who, like Bellingham, broke through and won the World Cup when he was 19 4 years ago. If England can handle him, there's nothing to fear in this France side, in my opinion. So it's going to be, I think they're probably more worried about us than we are about them, actually. But the fact of the matter is that England's record in World Cups against the major nations is not that great. When they come up against the big teams, they tend to stumble. However, this is, as I say, the best England side, the strongest squad for some years. So I have a feeling that they'll do it next weekend. There's a togetherness about this squad which has not been there before, and I think a lot of the other nations are looking over their shoulders now and thinking, yeah, England's they're a big major football nation too, and if they play anything like to what they can, then there's no reason why they can't go very deep in this tournament.
I'm getting really worried now. But I'm interested, obviously, in that squad that you talk about with all this potential. Noticeable by his absence in the match last night was Raheem Sterling, making front-page news back home.
Yeah.
This was after a burglary on his home in Surrey. And it's not clear yet whether or not he will return to the World Cup.
No, family comes first for something like this. It reminds me, I was in Brazil 8 years ago for the Brazil World Cup when England were terrible. Ian Wright had something very similar happen to him. He was ex-player then, working in television. His wife was held up at home by armed burglars. He went straight home. I don't think he returned either. What we're hearing on the Sterling thing is, you know, he wanted to go home. What would you do in the situation if your family have been at gunpoint, knife point, whatever it was, from people breaking into your home? That must have been a terrible shock to him. He's not played since the first game of the tournament. So, listen, England may not miss him, but he will want, if he can, he will want to get back here. The word at the moment is he will make his own decision. It's 5 days before the next game. I think almost certainly he would be on the bench for that game. Then there's 4 days to the semi-final, and then hopefully the final as well, a fortnight or a week on Sunday. So, yeah, terrible shock for Raheem Sterling. He'll be on his way home now. He'll take a few days just to get his head around it. But as far as I understand it, the FA, England have said, you know, look, take your time. We'd love you back, but no pressure to do so if you feel you need to be with your family.
Just very briefly, Scuds, it's a relief, isn't it, that Harry Kane has finally got one in the back of the net now?
Yeah, I mean, he was the Golden Boot winner at the last World Cup, but for some people, he was the man of the match last night. He was terrific. I mean, he works for the team. And this is the thing with England now. They really do feel unified. I looked around that team last night and I thought, you know, it's going to take a good team to beat them. I know France have got Mbappe, who's a brilliant player, the best in the world at the moment. But if they can handle him, the rest of them, forget it. England can beat them, honestly. And you know, "God Save the King" when it was being sang last night was a great thing, and it really feels like there's more to come. It's going to be a big build-up, but it's the World Cup. You know, England. France, we beat them in 1966 en route to winning it. We beat them again in 1982 in the World Cup. They are a beatable side. They're very, very good, but so are England. So, God save the King. Let's hope they do it.
Save the King. Amen to that.
I'll tell you what, Chris, it's really good to see you.
Yeah, it's lovely.
So, hopefully we'll be chatting a lot more over the next few days, maybe on Saturday or Sunday morning. Yes. That'd be fantastic. Thank you very much.
Cheers,
indeed.
Stephen.
To politics now. Sir Keir Starmer is to promise the biggest transfer of power from Westminster to the British people as he unveils a new report on Britain's future this morning.
Yeah, it's called A New Britain and it makes multiple recommendations, including handing more power to local authorities, moving civil servants out of London and reforming the House of Lords.
Well, with us this morning is Conservative political commentator Eamonn. Good morning to
Good morning.
Albie. So this is a huge move, then, from the Labour Party. I should stress at this point, this is all going to be consulted on yet. This isn't necessarily Labour policy. But I was reading Gordon Brown has been behind this, former Prime Minister Gordon Brown has been behind this report, and he sees it in many ways as the answer to the independence question when it comes to Scotland, more devolved powers.
Precisely. It's a huge report, a huge consultation that the Labour Party wants to do, led by the former Prime Minister Gordon Brown, as you mentioned. I think there are going to be around 40 recommendations that are going to be consulted upon. I think some of the big ones are around reforming the House of Lords to create an assembly of nations and devolved governments, also a ban on most second jobs, making the House of Lords appointments process more transparent, reducing the size of the House of Lords and actually more devolution powers for mayors and tax-raising powers for mayors and also the devolved governments as well.
Is there a sense that all works? I mean, I know there was a real appetite for mayors at one stage. Is that still there? I mean, are people across the country noticing a difference with these devolved powers that we've seen so far?
Well, it's been one of the things that actually both the Labour Party and the Conservative Party have been implementing. Of course, when we saw the Levelling Up white paper come out, I believe it was earlier on last year, we saw more metro mayors being introduced. We've seen a huge success of Andy Street in the West Midlands. We've got Tracy Brabin now in West Yorkshire as well. So it seems to be a trend from both main parties that we're seeing more power going to devolved powers as opposed from central government.
OK, so there's a big announcement then from him later this morning, Sir Keir Starmer. I suppose full analysis will take place throughout the day and again tomorrow morning on that. But also it's a big day in Westminster because this long-awaited online safety bill going through today. What can we expect from that? I mean, there's been lots of sort of conversation about it, hasn't there, about whether or not it goes far enough or whether it is watered down. What's your view on it?
So the online safety bill is coming back to Parliament this week for its third reading, so it's the final time that the House of Commons can scrutinise the legislation and will go to the Lords for further scrutiny. Essentially, the online harms bill, or the online safety bill, as some people call it, is a bill to regulate what people can and cannot say online, more in line with what is in the real world as opposed to the virtual world. And one of the controversial things about this legislation was a clause about legal but harmful content. A lot of free speech advocates were concerned that that would have impingements to free speech. It's a very fine balance between protecting free speech and also protecting what's mainly children, specifically teenage girls, from the harms that they can see online.
I mean, this is the problem. You can see it's absolutely fraught with the law of unintended consequences, isn't it?
Precisely. It is a really difficult balance for the government to strike. specifically a Conservative government. We saw this quite a key feature of the leadership contest. Of course, we saw Kemi Badenoch talking about how she wanted that legal but harmful clause gone. She didn't want legislation for hurt feelings, she called it. Whereas on the other side of the argument, you have advocates like Molly Russell's father, who, of course, committed suicide, saying that actually they want this clause in there because they believe it's damaging to children. It's a tightrope that the government are walking on.
Yes, OK. And what about the RMT union when we talk about strikes and all the issues that are being chewed over in Parliament this week? Look, the unions have had an offer, haven't they, from the train operators. They've rejected it, 8% over 2 years with no mandatory redundancies. Will sympathy wane, do you think, on the back of that offer? It seems like a pretty generous offer, doesn't it?
Well, of course, inflation is running higher than 8%. I think inflation is around 11%, just above 11%. So this did seem like quite a reasonable offer probably coming from the rail operators. And, of course, Mark Harper, the Transport Secretary, will be in even more tricky water this week, especially in the lead up to Christmas, when people are wanting to go and visit their families, go and visit shops in perhaps major towns. It's been a really difficult time for a lot of businesses over the last 2 years, and this was really the first normal Christmas after COVID. So the prospect of more strikes are going to make this a lot more difficult for these businesses to operate. But, of course, it's understandable why people are going on strike, because they feel they aren't having enough, they feel they're not earning enough money to pay for their bills.
OK, Albie, good to see you this morning. Thank you very much indeed. It's worth noting, actually, that the Scottish Government has been involved, obviously, in these negotiations with those people striking in Scotland. And there, the RMT has accepted an offer of 5% plus 750 quid in a one-off payment.
Right, interesting.
So now, Steve Headley, former Assistant General Secretary, was telling us at the weekend that he thought that was a terrible offer that they've accepted. But they have accepted that north of the border. So 8% over 2 years? Not bad. Though that offer's been around for a lot. We were talking about that months ago, weren't we?
Well, they've rejected it out of hand now. So where does this all go? Certainly lots of disruption around Christmas. Keep your thoughts coming in on all of those topics that we've been covering this morning. In the meantime, we're going to bring you up to date on the latest headlines this hour.
Yes, firefighters will start voting today on whether to strike over pay. 33,000 members of the Fire Brigades Union will decide if they should walk out. They've been given a 5% pay offer. Union bosses say many are desperate, with some struggling to afford to live.
Meanwhile, workers at the housing and homeless charity Shelter could face the prospect of being made homeless themselves, according to the Unite Union. More than 600 charity workers are going on strike today after seeking an improved pay deal. The industrial action is set to continue until the 16th of December.
And after the excitement of England's win last night, it's the turn of Brazil in the last 16 at the World Cup. Neymar could return from an ankle injury as the Brazilians face South Korea. And Japan hope to continue their giant-killing form when they take on the 2018 runners-up, Croatia. I must apologise, though.
Please, yeah.
No, because I'm going to keep chatting on this
I know,
morning.
I love it.
Why not? I am full of cold this morning.
Oh, great. So I'm going to be down with it
It's
in a
been
few
rumbling
days.
on. It's been rumbling on for a week or two, and today I am feeling it.
Well, do you know what? It's that time of year. The weather is really on the turn. They're saying snow is on the way. But do you know what's changed my life? What I discovered this weekend? I went to stay with my mother-in-law in the West Country.
All right.
She had teddy bear fleece bedding. I mean, it means I'm like a giant child, but my pillow was like a teddy bear, and I've tried to buy it for everyone, for my children, for my bed. So cosy. And I was actually really cold in bed last night, doing it was really chilly.
You got to snuggle up to your husband.
Yeah, I should do.
There you go. You see, it's a built-in hot water bottle. I thought. There you go. Anyway, well, we're going to be talking about the weather in a couple of minutes, because snow across the UK this week, so we're being told, and we'll find out just how cold it's going to get.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking to be largely cloudy, but it will feel chilly in the brisk easterly breeze. Let's take a look at the details. So areas in the far southwest of England may see the odd brighter spell, but the cloud will make it a grey day for most. Showers will also fringe southern coasts. A slight shift in the wind direction will bring the increasing risk of showers across southeast England. Otherwise, it's largely cloudy but feeling cold. And cloudy but a little light rain is possible for parts of Wales. This may include a small amount of sleet over the mountains. Cold and cloudy across central areas of England, but with the wind swinging around to more of a northeasterly, there is an increasing risk of a few light showers here and there later. It's eastern coasts that will see the most frequent showers today, the occasional one of which may be heavy. They'll feed inland on the brisk breeze, so it is worth holding on to an umbrella there. The showers and cloud will also push into eastern Scotland. However, northwest Scotland will likely see the brightest skies across the whole of the UK, thanks to the development of some sunny intervals. Western counties of Northern Ireland are also in with a chance of seeing some sunny spells today, but eastern coasts will be affected by isolated showers from the Irish Sea. So we will retain a very similar setup through Monday afternoon and evening, with showers chiefly in the east, and that's how the weather is shaping up for the rest of the day.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamonn Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens,
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. Clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Still to come on the programme this morning. I wasn't sure whose turn it was. At 6:45, we'll be finding out about the simple yet effective tools that you can use to get better quality sleep. We all need a good night's sleep.
Oh, yes, please. We're obsessed. If you work on a breakfast show, you're obsessed with sleep, which I always do, sleep stories.
Or any shift work, nurses, you name it.
Well, yeah. We are shift workers,
We are. And lots of shift workers watch us as well.
Oh, yeah. At 7:45, Kate Hardcastle will be here giving us her tips on how to have a thrifty Christmas without being a Scrooge.
Yeah, it's really important, I think, this year especially. Let us know your thoughts this morning. We've been talking all about World Cup fever, reforms within the Labour Party, but generally we just want things to make us smile.
Oh yeah, just quickly say that Mark says when you get a team together who work together as one and have this magic, England will win. Southgate has done it, the odds will be lousy, so you won't make any money on the betting. That's a fair point, but I think you're probably right. Togetherness. gbviews@gbnews.uk.
So it's feeling wintry, isn't it?
It
Parts
is.
of Britain are bracing for their first heavy snowfall of the year, with the harshest weather expected on Thursday and Friday this week.
Temperatures are going to drop below zero in the coming days. The freezing weather partly due to a storm rolling in from Norway. They're calling it the Troll of Trondheim.
Well, joining us to tell us more about said troll is weather journalist and regular on the programme, Nathan Rao.
Good morning.
A mouthful for us first thing this morning. So listen, it essentially means the beast from the east is blowing in.
The beast from the east. Well, what has happened is, or what is going to happen now, if you thought the weekend was cold, you're going to need a bigger coat because it's going to get colder. We've had a little breath from the east over the weekend. We were talking about the beast from the east just last week, and everyone was looking at the beast from the east. This has now veered slightly towards the northeast, Scandinavia. So coming in through Trondheim, the Trondheim fjords. This is where the troll from Trondheim comes in. Call it what you like. The ogre from Oslo, the Scandinavian shiver, whatever you call it, it's going to get cold and it's going to get snowy this week.
For how long, though? How long is it going to last?
Well, the synoptic charts, the weather charts, which we look at, show there's no real change in this until at least mid-month. Now, we can only say with any real certainty, as I always say, 5 to 10 days in advance, but up until mid-month, we have got cold and snow in the forecast, and it's going to be very cold. There are temperatures of -10 showing up in the north, and freezing, -2, 3 in the south.
All right, cold and snow, but where? It's not across the... We're not seeing it across the country, are we?
The Met Office has got a weather warning for snow in force all day Wednesday. And it's in Scotland, the north of Scotland, and they're talking about blizzards and travel, you know, all that sort of stuff. Throughout the rest of the week, there's about an 80 to 100% chance of seeing snow in northern England and central England and even southern England into next week. So with this weather pattern that we've got now, anywhere could get it. There's a low pressure to the south of the UK bringing some mild air. If that nudges into the colder air that's going to be sat over the UK, it could happen anywhere. But we're going to get snow.
Yeah, and I suppose, look, this year, above all years, with everything that's happening in Ukraine, when you get cold weather, people need to use their heating more.
Yes.
And there will be concerns about people trying to save money during this cost of living crisis, perhaps scrimping on using their heating, and that's a big worry.
It is a big worry, and also because it is slightly earlier. We were talking last week that, you know, this time of year it's sometimes milder. This is an early colder spell, although the Met Office long-range forecast suggests it might be turning milder later in the season. Small suggestion of that. But yes, certainly be prepared for it. Have jumpers and coats and things ready. I've often heard elderly, vulnerable people in the winter when it gets very, very cold, move into one room, put a heater in there, put everything in there so you can save on heating bills, that sort of thing, so you're not heating the whole house. Look after yourselves, because it is -10, that's up north, but, you know, freezing temperatures, low single figures in the day, even in the south, that's cold. We're going to feel
really
it.
Cold.
Yeah, I was going to say, but for this country, -10 is actually quite something.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Glens and the Highlands, you know, it's the usual spots. It's not everywhere, but the charts are showing up even possibly a bit lower than -10. In the wind chill, it'll be feeling even colder.
OK, so you said later in the season it's showing up as milder. Where does Christmas fit into all of this? Of course, all we really want to know is whether or not we're going to have snowmen on Christmas Day.
We are now 20 days away from Christmas, and if things head like they're going to head, there's no reason why we shouldn't get some snow somewhere. There's always...
Oh, come on. Some snow
I can't
somewhere.
tell you where the exact one flake of snow that is the required one snowflake that we need for a white Christmas is going to fall. Possibly in the north. But again, if we get this low coming in from the south, you know, it's hovering around there, and that brings mild air into cold air over it. We could get some snow in the south as well.
So why not explain that? Because you mentioned that before.
Yeah.
Why, if you've got the very cold air, why does the mild air then precipitate snow?
Because the mild air comes in off the Atlantic in a low-pressure system, and it is usually laden with moisture. And when that moisture bumps into the cold air over the UK, you get heavy snow rather than snow sweeping in. So the beast from the east tends to blow in dry, powdery snow that comes in down from the north. But when we get cold air over the UK and then low pressure bearing moisture coming in and bumping into that, you get the snow.
Do you know what my favourite weather is? Blue skies, but crisp, cold air. You know, when you blow it and your breath is all icy, and I love that kind of weather.
Yeah.
So if we've got a bit of that, even if it's not snowy, I'll be happy.
But a bit of snow for Christmas.
Bit of snow
I
for
think
Christmas,
so.
yes.
I
Anything
think
but
so.
a grey sky.
If we're going to be cold, if we're going to be huddled in one room with our hot water bottles, we may as well have something nice to look at through the window. That's what I say.
Nathan, always a pleasure. Glad you got
too.
the purple memo.
Oh, we're matching today.
First
We're
of many
matching.
guests today who seem to have turned up in
Yeah,
this colour.
something in the air.
You didn't get the memo, it seems.
No, nobody told me.
Anyway,
Blue.
yeah.
Oh, this
That's all
stylish
right. It's
blue.
lovely, stylish blue. Nathan, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, coming up in a couple of minutes, we're going to take you through the papers with Dawn Neeson and Ben Glaze, who are both apparently wearing purple. There you go.
It's one of those things.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online, this is GB News.
We are GB News, the People's Channel. Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Good evening.
Feels like it.
I'm having one of those days. It's because this is day 4 for me.
Delirious.
I am getting slightly delirious. It is 8... No, it's not. It's
no,
six...
it's not. I don't know what you're on, but it's making me laugh. It's brilliant.
It's 6:31. Oh, blimey. Let's have a look at the newspapers for you this morning. Isabel, take over.
I will. OK, here's the Express. It's leading with England's good news in the football last night. Of course, winning 3-0 against Senegal. It also talks about military personnel on standby to keep emergency services ticking over in the face of strikes this winter.
The Guardian discusses the health and wealth divide, with economic inactivity due to sickness at its highest level since records began.
The Telegraph covers rail strikes over Christmas, with the RMT rejecting the latest 2-year 8% offer and pressing ahead with those December walkouts.
The Times says face-to-face GP appointments for midlife health checks will be abolished and moved online to ease pressure on the NHS.
So that's how some of your front pages are shaping up. Let's take a look in more detail now at the insides of the pages. Giggling from the sidelines is the former editor of the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson. Sorry.
Good morning. Or is it good evening?
Who knows? And we're also joined by the political editor of the Daily Mirror, Ben Glaze. Also in your purple. Well done, guys. All got the memo this morning.
Apart from...
Well, nobody told
young
me.
Mr Dixon here.
That's all right. He's on his own little microclimate this morning.
I'll take it. I'm in my own world.
Yeah.
Ben, let's start with the Express, should we? Looking at the football.
That's right, celebrating England's mighty victory, 3-0 win over Senegal last night. And I have to say, as a Wales fan, I wasn't cheering on the Three Lions last night, but we can all delight in the fact that there's a few more days now until the weekend when hopefully France will knock England.
Oh, no, come on. This I don't understand, because, all right, you're back behind Wales, I get that. But now, don't you just support the next home nation?
I'm afraid I can't do that. I mean, I have mellowed, actually, since moving to London. I used to be really bad when I was back home in Wales. And I have lots of English friends who, Wales and England were in the same group, and they said, oh, wouldn't it be great if we both went through? And I was thinking, no. It's
unbelievable. You'd rather the French one than
Genuinely,
England.
Allez le bleu on
I don't get them off. We had this conversation out in the green room, and it was like, if Wales had gone through and we'd have got knocked out, I'd want Wales to do well.
Yeah, I would.
I'm sorry, I just don't...
I'm grateful for that. I just can't bring myself to do it.
I appreciate your honesty, and I'm sure lots of Welsh feel the same, and we will remember that, just saying.
Yes.
I'll tell you what, though, Dawn.
Go on, tell me what, Stephen.
Wasn't it? And you see, you know, I'm not a football fan.
No,
but
I
am getting into all of this. It was a cracker once we got going.
I am still not watching it.
What?
Why? I'm not watching it. No, because of where it's being played. I am a football fan. I support West Ham. I've been going... Well, football fan, West Ham, I know. But, I mean, I love my football and every other World Cup and European finals. I've been watching it and... It was really hard last night, I must admit, but I didn't watch it. I
You missed a cracker. Let me tell you, as a non-football fan...
Yeah, I know. I'm reading about it. I'm following it on social media. Obviously, it's my job as a journalist to keep up with it, but I can't bring myself... You know, I'm just thinking about the rights of women out there. I mean, you know, I'd need permission from my 12-year-old son to go to the shops. I'm sorry, I just can't support it.
But doesn't this change things, or at least have the possibility of changing things, having the international focus on a country?
You'd like to think so, and the argument has been put forward that, well, you watched it when it's in South Africa, but I think in South Africa it's a footballing country for a start, and I think there really was potential for changing a viewpoint and changing the way, obviously, apartheid and certainly the kids in the townships, I thought it was inspirational for them. Now, in the Middle East, it's never going to change. I mean, it's not going to change. We know what that country's like. We know what their views are. It's not a surprise. They're not going to... They're paying lip service to it. But at the same time, I think it's been demonstrated by the way you can't wear your armbands, you can't do this, you can't do that. You know, so I think it's not going to change. No.
It was mad watching the game.
The joy out of that one, Dawn.
Sorry, yeah. Any case.
Well, I was just going to say it was mad watching the game last night and seeing the Senegalese dancing in the stands, and there's a real family vibe, wasn't there? Because there's no booze, you really got the impression that it was a really nice sort of family, wholesome atmosphere at the stadium. Then you think, fast forward to the end of the World Cup, that stadium's never going to be used again.
There'll be empty stadiums, and I think having the World Cup in Qatar, it has. I agree with you that I didn't want it to be played there,
no,
you know, because of its awful human rights record, and of course the death of possibly thousands of migrant workers. But lots of people now know about Qatar and its human rights record who perhaps wouldn't have known about it had the World Cup.
Do you think it was a surprise to anybody, really?
I don't know. A lot of people maybe
don't
just weren't
think
aware
about
of
it, do they?
I think there's quite a lot of hypocrisy, though. Why have we focused so much on this? We didn't in Russia 4 years ago, and we're not obsessed with England playing Pakistan in the cricket in the same way. I think we've really disproportionately
because I think it's the amount of hypocrisy around this one in particular, Isabel, because we are getting lectured from lots of people who are going out there and earning millions of pounds for doing so, whilst going, oh, but the human rights are a bit bad, aren't they? But, you know, give me my £1.3 million for, you know, broadcasting live from here. Or in David Beckham's case, promoting the whole country for how much? 10 million or whatever it is. Any case. Yeah, well done, England. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, I've shut everyone up. No end here.
This morning with that, but...
I'm just leaving.
Just go.
Yeah.
Just go. Dawn, let's look at the Telegraph, should we? 8% over 2 years has been offered to RMT members to stop the strike.
Yes, indeedy. This was announced just at the timing of the England game, wasn't it? This was announced that RMT, Mick Lynch, have rejected the offer of 8% over 2 years and no compulsory redundancies until 2024. So strikes are still going ahead on the 13th, 14th, 16th and 17th of December, along with an overtime ban, which obviously is going to throw Christmas into chaos for so many people who want to travel to see their families. Look, this is a bigger offer than the nurses have been offered, who are also obviously on strike. And I think now it's like they've rejected it out of hand. Shouldn't they go back and ask the members again before rejecting it? That was my main issue with this. It's like the union said, no, we're not accepting, it's all out still. Shouldn't the members at least have a chance to have a say in this now as to whether they still think this offer is non-acceptable and to still go out on strike? It's just... Look, you know, and the military being trained up to cover all the strikes we've got coming. It feels like there's an advent calendar of strikes coming up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's like you open a little door in your window, it's like, oh, the post are on strike today, or the rail are on strike, or nurses, or ambulances. It's like, it's not going to be a happy Christmas, is it? I mean, it's... But we are where we are with it, and, yeah, but I just think, don't you think?
8% seems...
The way the offer was made last night, just before the kick-off in the football, and then dismissed, you know, minutes before kick-off, it hadn't gone back to the members. But that said, the union has always said it will protect its workers' pay and conditions. And of course, that 4% offer, which is what it is, if you break it down, because it's 4% a year, 8% over 2 years, that's way below the level of inflation, which is 11.1% at the moment, according to Consumer Prices
You're never
Index.
going to get anything level of inflation.
No, they're not, but they could. Their argument is they could get more than is currently on offer. And of course, the rail delivery group, they were saying no compulsory redundancies for April 2024. Well, of course, that means that in 18 months or so, lots of people could be losing their jobs.
I just think the danger is it will just turn so many people off the railways that actually it's detrimental in the long term. A lot of people think, I just can't rely on train services.
No, and this is the problem you've got with all the strikes coming up, Isabel. With the postal workers going on strike, I think it's Currys in one of the papers today saying, well, we're just going to use alternative methods of getting our products out to people. You're not going to use the Royal Mail anymore, the post office. And it's like, well, you could be striking yourself out of jobs.
Yeah, but you say as well about people, turning off the railways. Well, of course, we've spent 18 months working from home, lots of white-collar workers during the pandemic who didn't need to go to the office. And that's part of the reason that the rail bosses say reform is needed, because quite a few people have not gone back to the railways, so revenue's gone down. And, of course...
So does that, you see, that's interesting that you point that out then. So do you think these strikes are justified or not?
I understand why they're going on strike and why the RMT is calling them out on strike, because they want to protect pay. I also do think reform is needed. You can't carry on with some of the practices that have been ingrained for decades, because you have to appreciate that things have changed.
Yeah. Well, things that are also changing, according to the Times front page, Ben, are midlife health checks. They're to go digital for GPs.
That's right, I didn't realise I was actually eligible for one of these.
Right,
How
old do you have to be?
You have to be 40, and unfortunately I hit that particular threshold a couple of months ago.
Me too, yeah.
Well, I've never had a midlife
We're not the right
health
age
check.
yet.
Oh, is that
No, we're too young.
Oh, right, OK.
But yeah, so in April 2009, they brought in these health MOTs for people aged between 40 and 74 if you didn't already have a medical condition, which meant you had to go to your doctor regularly, so you were seen. Now, they are saying that they're going to go online. So you'll be filling in a questionnaire online, then you'll do a blood test on yourself at home. Now, we've all got used to testing ourselves for corona at home. But I'm not sure I'd be happy doing a blood test on myself at home.
It's a bit finger prick job, won't it?
It hurts, doesn't it?
No, it does not.
When I give blood, I don't like that.
Be so soft.
Not sure I could do that to myself.
Oh, no, I've got no problem with that. You just do a bit of a hole punch. But the idea of drawing blood properly...
No, you couldn't do that yourself.
Do that, because you could get air bubbles and all sorts.
You have to as well, if, in a face-to-face appointment, perhaps you're inclined to be more honest if the doctor's asking you how much you drink and what fatty foods you eat.
Or maybe the reverse, Ben.
Well, in the privacy
if you don't have a doctor eyeballing you about how much you drink every week, perhaps you might put a bit more anonymous on it.
I don't know. I think I might be inclined to lie to the laptop, I think.
Really? Okay.
Perhaps, yeah.
But doctors do pick up an awful lot from how people actually look, their body language, their demeanour when they're talking to them. And as you say, very few people are honest, sort of like, filling an online form, how much you drink a week, well, a lot less than you, doctor, that type of thing. But, I mean, it's like, I think this face-to-face, I mean, I didn't know this thing existed.
Neither did I.
I'm way past 40, slightly.
No, you aren't. Not a day over.
Yeah, but I didn't know this existed. And, my mum, who is too old for this category now, but she was asked to do a urine sample that people in their 80s have to do. And for the first time ever, she has to do that at home, fill in an online form and then send it off. And my mum's going, I don't know how to fill the form in. What am I meant to do?
Aww. You do wonder. I mean,
and she felt very embarrassed about sending stuff like that through the post. I mean, which is on strike in any case.
Oh gosh,
it might have gone off by the time.
Let's not go there.
But these MOTs designed to pick up things like potential strokes, heart disease, obesity, these sorts of things. If they're not taking place face to face, it's possible that lots of conditions will go undiagnosed, and of course that piles pressure on the NHS further down the line, because part of the reasons these health checks were brought in was to diagnose things early, so you don't need the care later. It's preventative.
Well, yes, but if I totally understand that, but I sort of think if people can't, this is to protect your own health. If people can't be bothered to be honest and to get on the scales and say, oh yes, I do actually weigh that much, or I do actually drink that much, or I do smoke that much, if they can't be bothered to do that, then why should we all be tearing our hair out about it?
Well, I think it's...
They've got personal responsibility.
You possibly don't need the questionnaire, though, if you're getting on the scales every morning and see you're 6 pounds overweight. You need to fill in a form to see that,
Well, no, but the doctor needs to know that. This is the thing, it's about telling the doctor, isn't it, so that they can then nag you to do something about it. I don't know, I'm all for self-care.
Yeah. I think we do have to admit that a personal responsibility isn't a big thing at the moment. I mean, a lot of personal regret was taken away from us during the pandemic, where the government were literally telling you how to walk down the road, remember? But, I mean, I think a lot of people are now going, the government's fault, you didn't tell me I shouldn't eat this, you didn't tell me I shouldn't do that. And it's like, no, you really have to use a bit of common sense.
Well, let's stay with the health theme then, Dawn. You've chosen this on the front of The Guardian, sicker and poorer, and this is a north-south divide widening when it comes to health.
Yeah, I really want to cheer people up this morning, don't I? It's like, bah, humbug, Qatar. What?
Oh, well, you've got a bit of a dewdrop.
I know, because I've got your cold. Should we tell people how I got your cold?
You were out of shot, so don't worry.
you.
I was just passing you a tissue.
Thank you.
But you've blown the cover of doing
I know. Any
Big
case,
gent.
no snogging.
That's
right, okay. Any case, back to The Guardian, right? Sicker and poorer. This is 2.5 million people of working age are inactive because of poor health, and there is a huge, as you've just said, Isabel, a huge divide between London and the South East, and in particular the North East, Wales and Northern Ireland, where more people are basically unable to work because of poor health. This is a new report that's come out from the, the Independent Institute Public Policy Research, which are a progressive think tank, evidently. Look, basically, it links into the previous story, isn't it? I mean, people are getting sicker. I think that there's lots of reasons behind this, and the story doesn't really delve down into why there are such differences. Obviously, you know, healthcare is sort of is important across the board, but there does seem to be a statistical divide. But I would like to know more about this story and about exactly the factors coming into play. And also, I'm always very nervous about surveys from think tanks. Yeah. Who's backing this think tank?
There's always an agenda.
There's always an agenda, and this is quite a left-leaning think tank, and this is obviously an opportunity to kick the government, which is what they're put on earth to do.
I think, you know, the fact that there are health disparities between regions of the United Kingdom, that's not new in and of itself. But the way the story's framed is through the prism of levelling up, which, of course, 3 years ago this month, Conservatives had that landslide under Boris Johnson, 80-seat majority, promising to level up the UK. And, of course, trying to define that was always going to be difficult. So they latched onto making health expectancy, healthy life expectancy, narrowing that gap. And according to this, it's got bigger. Now, obviously, the government would say coronavirus derailed...
Well, yeah, and that's a fair point, isn't it?
It is a fair point. And some of these problems go back far longer, obviously, than 2019. Some of the reasons... it's not in the story, but some of the reasons perhaps North East, which is one of the regions singled out here, obviously industrial heritage. If you're working down mines, steelworks, that sort of thing, you're going to have more long-term health conditions. That's perhaps one of them. But just looking at it the way the IPPR have done, it might be a bit too simplistic.
It's there's not enough delving down into the background going on here, and other factors coming into play, is there? So,
no, fair point. Have we got time for another one? Very quickly, Ben, in the eye, households who are getting into real debt with their energy bills being forced onto prepay meters. Now, I can understand that to an extent, apart from the fact prepay meters charge you more per unit of energy. So if you're running out of money, we're going to charge you more.
That's right. I mean, it's an awful situation for some of the hardest-up households in the country, whereby they already can't afford their bills, and then they're put on a system that costs them more. It's basically because the energy firms don't trust them to pay their bills eventually, so it's like you have to pay as you go, essentially. But some of the situations here where they're called utility warrants, which I didn't know. I knew warrants could be granted. Didn't realise that people could turn up and forcibly install one of these prepayment meters in your home. And it says here, they're turning up with dogs and dog handlers to do it as well. It's awful.
In a private home?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I just think now is not... I understand why, if people aren't paying, they think prepayment meters. I know why that's happened in the past. But especially at the moment, no, come on.
Oh, no, it's
frightening, isn't it?
Terrible situation. Right, Ben Glaze, Dawn Neeson, thank you so much. We'll go through the papers again with both of them just after 7:30. Thank you.
Now, if you're watching and listening to us this early, hopefully you've got a good night's sleep, or you're about to go to bed and have a decent sleep, because for many, good quality sleep can be elusive. So what can we do to improve it?
Well, joining us now is sleep doctor and author of the 7-Day Sleep Prescription, Dr. Eric Prather. Good morning to you. Look, really interesting you talk about the 7-day sleep prescription, because I noticed one of your number one points where people are going wrong is that they're getting up too late on their days off, and this upsets their natural circadian rhythm and therefore it creates problems in their sleep patterns.
That's exactly right. I mean, I think if there was one thing that I could have people do to get people's sleep back on track is to have them wake up at the same time 7 days a week. And look, that's not easy, right? I mean, sometimes we need to sleep in on the weekends because we're carrying a lot of sleep debt, but that predictability is really critical for helping the system work best. And so if you can start with that, if you're having sleep problems, you want to start with kind of setting the day off right and keeping that consistent wake time.
How does that work for idiots like us who do shift patterns?
I'm not getting up at that time on a Saturday.
No, we can't get up at 3 o'clock 7 days a week.
Yeah, you know, I've been on a number of these types of shows, and it's the same kind of thing, right? That's a really hard job, and it's you know, and that way you actually have to protect your sleep the best way you can, right? And so whether it's a doctor or a nurse that has a shift, or if it's someone that has is on a show like yours, it is important to kind of make up that sleep when you can, and it may just come with some consequences with people that have shift work where they have to often sleep during the day because they work at night. We have kind of scheduled naps and things like that to help people kind of regain some of that sleep. But honestly, you really need to do the best you can and really prioritize sleep, because that is such a piece of, I think of it as kind of the glue that holds our lives together.
We were just talking about the rise of so-called white-collar workers in the paper review there, working from home after the pandemic. Do you think it's reasonable for people who work from home to sneak in a cheeky nap? And should employers welcome that to increase productivity? Genuine question.
Yeah. I mean, the move to remote work has really had this interesting effect on sleep. I mean, in some ways, a lot of people's sleep has improved because they don't have the commute in the morning. Now, napping by itself is not a bad thing, right? It can increase alertness, but it also can be a symptom of not getting sufficient sleep at night. And so, if you're napping a lot during the day, you really want to think about kind of what's going on at night. Why is this happening? Is there something I can do to improve my sleep schedule or my transition to bedtime so that I can get that real nice restorative sleep that I need that is requiring you to take a nap during the day?
That sometimes when we feel, you have those days and it comes to the end of the day and you feel absolutely drained, but you almost you get to this point of being overtired, so you're exhausted, but then you still have a bad night's sleep.
Yeah, I mean that does come up for people. I mean, I think it's really, we need to kind of take a look at what's going on throughout the day that leads to that outcome. Oftentimes people have a lot of stressors, a lot of kind of anxieties that drive a difficulty to fall asleep or stay asleep or not give you the restorative sleep you need. And so, thankfully there are some strategies to help manage that, whether it's during the day or in the middle of the night, so that we can get that kind of supportive, kind of, salubrious, healthful sleep that we all want. But, certainly some nights aren't as good as others. And I think that's natural. I mean, certainly as we age, our sleep can be variable. And we just need to kind of try to pay attention to where we might be able to make changes to increase the quality of our sleep on average over time.
Entered the world of work, didn't really understand the impacts of caffeine, and I was drinking sometimes 6 cups of coffee to G me up, and then I was having palpitations and endless sleep problems. So I've sorted that out, and you write about this in your book, but you have quite a novel, dare I say, extreme alternative to caffeine, which involves sticking your head in a freezer.
What?
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea was really, what can we do so that we don't have to kind of grab for that extra cup of coffee in the afternoon? And one of the things that we know can actually be alerting is cold exposure. Think polar plunge, but, maybe getting that cold exposure on your head, maybe putting your head in a freezer just to kind of get that going for you will increase your sympathetic nervous system, increase alertness. There's obviously some novelty to it, but, honestly, what you could do is also do a brisk walk outside, no freezer required, just something that can kind of get you moving and keep you from consuming that extra bit of caffeine that will probably kind of feed into your night and leave you kind of wanting sleep instead of getting sleep.
OK, I think the brisk walk sounds a bit more manageable. Can you imagine my children walking into the kitchen? Mummy, why have you got your head
in the freezer? Better than being in the oven, darling.
Yeah, that's true.
There you go, that's the alternative. How do you, can I ask you, how do you sleep? And do you ever get the point, even an expert like you, where you think, I need to take, I don't know what the drugs are that you have in the States, but, these sort of sleep aids. Do you ever find yourself thinking, I'm just going to have to pop one of these tonight?
It's those sleep aids that exist are really great for acute problems, right? Especially when people travel and they need to be rested, and that's why they exist. I sleep. I have 2 little kids, and so I have kind of pretty erratic sleep at times. But I think we're kind of built for this. I mean, ask any parent. We can go on without the sleep that we need, but we certainly want to make sure that we can protect it the best way that we can. And so, by following tips like maintaining a stable wake time, not spending too much time in bed, not sleeping, protecting and prioritizing sleep, we can kind of surmount lots of challenges. And so, I don't tend to take any kind of sleep aids, but, and I don't think people need to chronically. And so we want to try to figure out what we can do behaviorally to get people's sleep back on track.
Okay.
Have we ruined your night's sleep now? Because it's nearly 11 o'clock there, isn't it, at night? Have you?
You're overstimulated.
Have you overstimulated now? Yeah.
I will admit that it is later than I typically do, and I don't have these lights in my eyes usually. But otherwise, it was well worth it to get the message out, and I hope that you guys had a great night's sleep last night.
I didn't. But...
No, I didn't either, but I will do tomorrow.
What's that? Sleep?
I will do tomorrow. Eric Prather, sweet dreams.
Yeah, thank you.
Good to see you.
Some top tips.
Thank you so much.
I do think there is something in that freezer stuff.
Well, the cold thing, I get a lot of people say if you have your shower in the morning and then you turn it to cold.
Yeah, that's the way forward.
But I can't do it.
Let us know your sleep tips and anything else you want to let us know this morning. We'll be back after this quick break. Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking to be largely cloudy, but it will feel chilly in the brisk easterly breeze. Let's take a look at the details. So areas in the far southwest of England may see the odd brighter spell, but the cloud will make it a grey day for most. Showers will also fringe southern coasts. A slight shift in the wind direction will bring the increasing risk of showers across southeast England. Otherwise, it's largely cloudy but feeling cold. And cloudy but a little light rain is possible for parts of Wales. This may include a small amount of sleet over the mountains. Cold and cloudy across central areas of England, but with the wind swinging around to more of a northeasterly, there is an increasing risk of a few light showers here and there later. It's eastern coasts that will see the most frequent showers today, the occasional one of which may be heavy. They'll feed inland on the brisk breeze, so it is worth holding on to an umbrella there. The showers and cloud will also push into eastern Scotland. However, northwest Scotland will likely see the brightest skies across the whole of the UK, thanks to the development of some sunny intervals. Western counties of Northern Ireland are also in with a chance of seeing some sunny spells today, but eastern coasts will be affected by isolated showers from the Irish Sea. So we will retain a very similar setup through Monday afternoon and evening, with showers chiefly in the east, and that's how the weather is shaping up for the rest of the day.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236. And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere. Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us. We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
England secure their place in the World Cup quarter-finals with a 3-0 win against Senegal.
There's going to be a few sore heads this morning,
Oh,
don't
yes.
you? A very good morning to you. It is 7 o'clock. It's Monday, the 5th of December. You're watching and listening to Breakfast on GB News with Isabel and Stephen.
Well, this is what's leading the news for you this morning, and the Three Lions have made it through to the World Cup quarter-finals. They'll face the reigning world champions France on Saturday. That 3-0 win against Senegal last night saw Harry Kane score his first goal of the tournament.
The Labour Party will launch a new report on the country's future, with Sir Keir Starmer promising the biggest ever transfer of power to the British people. We'll be live in Leeds, where the announcement's taking place this morning.
And the RMT union has rejected a pay offer designed to avert 8 days of highly disruptive strike action this Christmas. The group representing train companies said the proposal included an increase of 8% over 2 years.
And lots of you have been getting in touch on all of our topics this morning. Keep those thoughts coming in, you know the usual ways, Twitter or email gbviews@gbnews.uk.
So, England have progressed to the World Cup quarter-finals after, well, we're saying a comfortable 3-0 victory over Senegal. It wasn't comfortable to begin with.
Forget
Honestly,
about that. First 20 minutes or so.
Senegal was just like really on it to start with. Anyway, we clawed it back.
Yeah, thank goodness. Captain Harry Kane scored his first goal of the tournament, but really it was 19-year-old Jude Bellingham who impressed with a man-of-the-match display in the heart of the Three Lions midfield.
Well, Gareth Southgate and his side now face their toughest test yet, taking on reigning world champions France, with a place in the semi-finals at stake.
There might be a few sore heads, as we were saying, on the commute to work this morning. England fans were out in droves in the pubs and the fan zones last night. And our reporter, Will Hollis, took on the difficult task of joining in the party.
It might be 4 degrees, but a Winter World Cup isn't all that bad.
Nice and cold out here, but I'm sure it's warm there.
I'm excited to see Phil Foden and Jack Grealish.
Got my gloves, so warm me up, got the bib. Doesn't matter what the weather is. Doesn't matter. It's England, isn't it?
We could do a gazebo, though.
We could do a gazebo.
It's not the cold that's got England fans shivering at the Trent Navigation in Nottingham. There's a different kind of tension in the knockout stages. The Lions may have finished top of their group, but Senegal are champions in Africa.
I'd like to think we can win 2-0. 1-0 will do.
If we attack with a bit of freedom tonight, I think we'll do perfectly fine.
We're going to win the first half, lose the second half, but win the match.
What does that mean?
They're going to win.
A sluggish start, but then England find their feet. once, and then again in the first half.
We've got 2 in the bag. I'm feeling positive. I'm calm now. I hope we win 5-0.
I went to the toilet twice and missed both of them. I'm really not happy about it. But it's coming home, so it don't matter.
As the beer flows, so do the goals. The ending is inevitable now. England 3, Senegal 0.
We won, we're through to the next round.
I was confident, and the boys, they performed.
England march on with old rivals in sight. The last time they played France in a World Cup, England won. That was 1982. This time, France are reigning champions.
We're going to play France, we're going to beat them, man. If we go toe-to-toe with them, then we'll beat them. If we go defensive, then we'll lose.
But for now, that doesn't stop the singing. Will Hollis for GB News in Nottingham.
Oh, well, Paul Coit is here. A bit hungover this morning, Paul.
No, I am not.
No,
you just look... I'm drunk on happiness. That's what I was. I thought it was terrific yesterday.
I mean, honestly, once that first goal went in, because it was Henderson and Bellingham, wasn't it, who got that first one in, really. It's why Bellingham's getting all the praise. He was just setting them up.
Bellingham is... I mean, we have mentioned Jude Bellingham before. He's 19, and this kid is just such a fantastic footballer. And not only that, but incredibly mature the way he plays, and I will, I think I'll say it, is that I think it's the best and most exciting England player I think we've seen at a World Cup since we go back to Gaza, back to 1990, because his performances have been exemplary, the way he handles himself. For example, it was like I think it was on the second goal. As he runs through, you get so many players will run through and they'll keep the ball, and then they'll run on and they'll either shoot or they'll lose it. He knows the exact moment to give the ball. He knows when to pass it. He's generous. He's a terrific player, and it's. Everybody, I thought, was great. I thought Harry Kane... Now, Harry Kane, I heard you mention Harry Kane earlier. Yes, he scored a goal, but he's so important to the team. There's so many people that have been saying, oh, well, he shouldn't be playing because he's not scoring a goal. He's so much more to that team, not only as a captain, but as a player. And I thought they were great yesterday. It started off a little bit wobbly. And
actually a couple of near misses for Senegal.
It was, and you can't be doing that against a team like France. No. So, you know what? And then it moves
on fire with it, though,
He was. I thought everything was good. You honestly, you looked at everything.
Honestly. I really enjoyed it.
It's like talking to John Motson while I'm doing this. It's going to throw me. But it was a terrific performance. So now it's just all about looking forward now to this France game.
And this is where not only do I really get interested, because I'm smelling, getting close to...
You're smelling success, aren't you? That's what it is. Sweet smell of success.
I'm nervous, because France is a big deal.
You know what? But all this time that I've been trying to say to you, football and sport and how important it is, you've just summed up for me exactly what it's all about. It's that excitement and the nervousness, and that's what it's all about. And it's the adrenaline and going. And if we're feeling that now, by the time we get to Saturday in the game against France, because of course France are the world champions. We're talking about players like Kylian Mbappe. This guy's.
I don't know if you saw Chris Scudder earlier on. Saying, if we can deal with Mbappe. Then everyone else on the team is fine.
They've got great players. They've got Antoine Griezmann. They've got, the thing is, they've lost players. They've lost players through injury, and they're terrified of getting more injuries, because when they played against Tunisia, when they lost, they made 9 changes, and they don't have the strength in depth that England do, because if you look at the England bench, each one is just like they could just walk straight into any Premier League side, any side in the world. They're fantastic footballers. France, I don't think, have that strength in depth. Their first 11 is great, but it's doable. It's certainly doable. I reckon it's literally 50-50 between France and England how this is going to go. But
talking about that subs bench and having the strength and depth, somebody who was notable by their absence last night was Raheem Sterling.
Yes.
It's not clear if he will return to the World Cup at all at this stage. And look, really horrible what happened to his family.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Gareth Southgate's it just shows again what a great man manager he is, how he handled it with interviews afterwards and what he said. And again, football is so important. We're talking about a World Cup, but nothing is more important than family and what's going on at home. So whether he actually makes it back remains to be seen.
But it sort of doesn't matter in the sense, because of the depth on the subs bench.
Yes, and I wanted to try and say that, but it probably wouldn't have come out quite as sympathetic as the way that you did it, because it doesn't, because we do have... Our starting 11 yesterday was fantastic. Are we going to miss him? As a person, etc., of course. Yeah. But as a player, is it going to make a huge difference to our team and how far we go? Maybe not.
But
Maybe not.
reportedly, it's sort of sent a wave of fear through the England team, who are all now worried about their own security of their properties. Everybody knows where they are. They're not at home.
Well, of course, it's the oldest thing, isn't it? You know, you never post on Facebook that you're on holiday or where you are. But, of course, when you're an England footballer, everybody knows. And the fact that the family was at home is terrifying. Absolutely terrifying and horrendous. So, we send our love to him. And
they can all step up their security. I mean, you've got the Dosh to step up, get private security, and haven't they?
Of course, and I'm sure that's what's going to be going on.
And quite rightly so. How did you celebrate last night, Paul?
I'd celebrated with a cup of tea and get to bed. I had a late night at 9:30.
Yeah,
so I could get up in time for 3 o'clock. But the further we go into it, Saturday, of course, well, I mean, it'll be a work morning for you, won't it, the next morning? But it won't be for me. So France have got to prepare, but it's all about momentum. We've just got to take it one step at a time.
You can do it, Paul.
We can do it. I mean, I've been looking at the possibilities, and again... It's an old football thing, you know, you're very superstitious. You don't want to get ahead of yourself. So should we get... I can't find any wood to touch, but should we get through France, then it's either going to be Spain or Morocco or Portugal or Switzerland. And then that would then towards the final. And then we've got the other side, Holland and Argentina are playing, so the Netherlands and Argentina. Oof. So we've got Brazil over there as well. It's never going to be easy. There's no easy route to get to the final, but France...
You're jumping the gun a little bit.
I think I am jumping the gun. I'm trying to...
I'd like to know what the plan is.
Exactly.
What about these England celebrations?
Yeah, well, the thing is, obviously they've got to be tempered.
I was gently trying to tease.
They're tempered. I've gone off another direction, as always. So, look, the England team, they arrived back in the hotel. Now, the very funny thing is that when the Netherlands arrived back, they got back in their hotel and it was like some party had broken out. And I thought, well, and there's Louis van Gaal and he's there and I'm thinking, this is amazing. Maybe it's just spontaneous. I don't think it's spontaneous because by the time they arrived back at the hotel, I think we can have a look at this as well. When they arrived back at the hotel, there's already the welcoming committee. There they are. Now, look, have a look closely there. How many true England fans? I'm not sure. I don't know whether they work in the hotel but everybody's going crazy. If they... I don't know what happened at the Senegal. Look, there's Jack Grealish there. He's having a lovely time. There's the... I don't know with Senegal, or if you lose, maybe they play like a death march or everything and they just give a slow hand clap. But look at that. There's Phil Foden there getting involved. Everybody's having a fantastic time. And this is just getting through the round of 16. So can you imagine how many people would be there by the time we get past France, get past the semi-final? There we are. There's Kyle Walker. He's forgetting the fact that he's got to mark Kylian Mbappe on Saturday. But there we are. He's just waving his flag. But look at them all.
They're going to have to go and stay in a bigger hotel with more staff.
I think they're going to have to. But I tell you, I'd like to have that job there as one of the main celebrators. I don't know.
It's not a bad job, is it?
It's not bad. I think I'd do that really well, even with my bad shoulder.
Just to say, if people are listening on the radio, you can catch that on our app or watch it back as well. It's worth seeing. It's a nice little...
It is worth seeing, yeah, it is. It is worth seeing because they're doing it everywhere, so, yeah. I've actually got one waiting for me as I walk out of the studio. Yeah, which I'm very much looking forward to.
We're going to let you go.
OK, so if there's noise in the background, I apologise.
OK, understood.
You know, it's only Dawn Neeson with a party popper.
Is that what it is?
The same.
OK, fine. OK, well, I'll take what I can.
Yeah, there you go.
We love you
Lovely
lots.
stuff.
Thank you, Paul. To politics now. A little bit of a downer after all of that. So Keir Starmer is promising today that there will be the biggest transfer of power from Westminster to the British people. He's unveiling a new report on Britain's future in Leeds later.
Yeah, it's called A New Britain, and it makes multiple recommendations, including handing more power to local authorities, moving civil servants out of London and reforming the House of Lords.
Well, with us this morning is the Conservative... Oh, sorry, it says political commentator Eamonn.
No, he's been and gone.
It's our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, who joins us from where that speech is going to be made a little bit later on. Good morning, good to see you, Darren. Look, this has been long planned. It's not necessarily Labour policy yet. It's going to be consulted on, but it's going to be significant in terms of what shapes the legacy of Sir Keir Starmer, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed. If he becomes, of course, Prime Minister, Isabel, as you say, these plans have been worked on for the last 2 years or so with Gordon Brown. Do you remember him, the former Prime Minister? Well, he's been compiling this report for the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, and it is looking at some big constitutional reforms. Now, the argument the Labour leader will make a little later on today here in Leeds is that the power in the UK is too centralised at Westminster, that it is detriment to decisions made across the UK. He'll say that things like levelling up and the Northern Powerhouse are good ideas from the Conservatives, but they can't really be properly implemented if local authorities, mayors, devolved governments don't really have the power to implement many of these policies. And that is why, as you say, he's going to propose, or at least this report is going to propose, the devolution of more powers to local councils, to mayors across the country, to governments. Too, it involves a transfer of around 50,000 civil servants outside of London. And perhaps most eye-catchingly of all, it's going to talk about the abolition of the House of Lords. Now, there is some controversy about this, not least of all because it's been much talked about in the past, though it must be said the House of Lords has had the reputation pretty badly damaged in recent years. It's bloated to over 800 members. Many see it as linked to cronyism, essentially jobs for people who have done favours for prime ministers in the past. Now, it looks like this report is going to propose that the upper chamber, the House of Lords, should indeed be elected. However, it's not entirely sure where Sir Keir Starmer will fall on that, because, as you say, he is not going to say the report will be implemented in full. He's going to consult on it first. Suggestions that, yes, Labour is committed to a second elected chamber, but it may not happen in a first Labour term. Anyway, we're going to get all the details and indeed hear from Sir Keir Starmer a little later on this morning here in Leeds. But as then fundamentally his argument is, if you believe in something like Brexit, it means taking back control, but not just to Westminster, he would argue, to the different parts of the United Kingdom too.
OK, Darren, thank you. Let's talk to the Spectator's assistant editor, Cindy Yu, who's here in the studio. Good to see you this morning. I can't help but, and this is just me, it just seems a very odd focus for the Labour Party at the moment. When you look at everything that's going on, and they're being very critical of the government, but not actually coming up with real alternatives at the moment to the crisis that we're in, this just seems a bit of a sideline to me.
It is interesting, isn't it, whenever you have someone from Labour criticising the government on the airwaves, whether it's over strikes or waiting lists or whatever it is, when questioned, what are you going to do differently? Very few of them actually have an answer for that. And they'll say, well, that's because we're not in government yet, we're not in an election yet, so we have some time to work out a manifesto. Well, this looks pretty worked out, whatever the announcements are going to be later today.
And does this have the potential to be a vote winner? Do you think this is what people want to see?
Well, so what I was going to say is that it's actually quite interesting that some of the reason that the Labour Party doesn't seem like it has ideas is because the Conservative Party cannibalises their ideas, right? When you look at the windfall tax or the energy price guarantee, both of those were Labour suggestions that the Conservative government have just taken on, made it their own in a certain way or gone further than even Labour would. So it puts Labour in a very difficult position. In reverse, though, if Labour is now going to talk about levelling up, which is fundamentally a Boris Johnson phrase, but also put more meat on the bones, because let's be clear, since 2019, he's been talking about levelling up, but few people still really know what it means. If Labour identifying the problem as having local authorities not having enough power, then perhaps that is a way of kind of reverse cannibalising what the Conservatives are talking about and giving more power back to local regions.
I just think it always strikes me as being very odd. In the sense that it's all about being more democratic, right? And we have a closer association with the people who have more control over our money and our spending and our lives. But turnout for local elections and things, I don't know what the figures are for the mayoral elections, but local elections, turnout's terrible, actually. So we're democratically much less involved with that.
Yeah, although maybe it's a bit of both. If you had more say on your local authority, if you, for example, in a local community could say, I don't mind having an onshore wind farm down the road from me, and if I vote for the right councillors, that means I get discounted energy for that onshore wind farm to be built. Maybe that would also encourage voter turnout. We just don't know, because we haven't been in that system so far. What I will say, though, is actually, in this country, London is such the focus of everything that goes on in politics, in media, in policy. Every single thing that goes on happens in London. we do need to build Manchester and Leeds and other regional hubs into more independent hubs of their own.
Well, if we want these independent hubs, we need to have good network links, good rail links. Now, RMT have rejected the latest offer of 8% over 2 years with the guarantee of no mandatory redundancies during that period. This row is rumbling on. It means a winter of disruption on the rail services for people, especially over the Christmas period. Did they reject a decent offer there, do you think?
Well, it's 4% this year, 4% next year. I mean, that's 8%. I mean, inflation's at 10%. It might fall again next year. So I feel like that is a relatively decent offer compared to, well, literally anyone else is facing. I mean, no one is facing inflation-linked pay rises, even in the private sector, really. So I do find that quite difficult. But I think the government hasn't done itself any favours by not spelling out exactly what it is that it thinks rail bosses could be doing better. So, for example, things like actually sending people out onto the railways to check whether or not those railways are still working, that feels like something that we shouldn't have to do in the 21st century. And it's that kind of working practice that the government talks about vaguely. But, you know, if you actually spell out the kind of archaic working practices that we're trying to fight against at the moment, that might be quite helpful. But people just don't quite understand. It's not just about pay, it's about just making the system more efficient, more automated.
See, what gets confusing, though, with all of this is, and because the unions come on, of course, and they blame the government for all of this, these are private companies, aren't they? Now, of course, there's government involvement in the infrastructure and what have you. But how much actually does the government have an influence on what the rail operating companies are talking about with the unions?
So we've got a really confusing system in the UK over rails, where the rails are nationalised, essentially, but the companies themselves operate on these rails, so they kind of have to get a blessing of government. So they're kind of not fully private, but also not fully national. And so it's a really awkward situation where I understand that the rail bosses want to give in, but the government is saying, no, don't give in yet. So it was just too many cooks at the moment, really.
Just lastly, Cindy, before we let you go, today is the deadline, I believe, for Conservatives to announce whether or not they plan to stand at the next election or stand down. We had a big name in the form of Sajid Javid. We've had other long-term successful Conservative MPs saying they're not going to run at the next election. Are we expecting any big casualties or announcements today, or all to play for?
Well, yeah, let's wait and see what happens. There was a really funny cartoon in the Sunday Times yesterday of Rishi Sunak as a ship's captain in a sinking ship, and then Sajid Javid lowering himself down on a lifeboat saying, I absolutely believe in your leadership. This is not about that at all. I just have maybe other personal... and then they're all getting into a lifeboat and sailing away.
Yeah, it's interesting because we talked... So it is... I mean, Isabel's right. It is the deadline set by CCHQ today, but it's not a deadline that anyone's going to pay any attention to. They can pull out whenever they want.
They can pull out whenever they want, exactly. And then Boris Johnson saying that he's going to stand again, I mean, he can also change his mind anytime he wants if a more lucrative deal comes up. So, yeah, it's a bit of an arbitrary deadline.
Yeah.
There we go. All right, Cindy, always good to get your take on the day. Thank you very much indeed.
It's 7:20. Let's bring you up to date with the rest of this morning's headlines.
The government has set out plans to overhaul NHS pension rules in an attempt to retain more senior doctors. The proposals would allow staff to claim their pension benefits but continue working and contributing to that pension. The Health Secretary Steve Barclay says the move will help open up extra GP appointments.
Firefighters begin voting today on whether to strike over pay. 33,000 members of the Fire Brigades Union will decide if they should walk out after a 5% pay offer, which they've rejected. Union bosses say many are desperate, with some struggling to afford to live.
And after the excitement of England's win last night, it is the turn of Brazil in the last 16 at the Qatar World Cup later. Neymar could return from an ankle injury as the Brazilians face South Korea. And Japan hope to continue their giant killing form when they take on 2018 runners-up Croatia. I got Croatia in the sweepstake.
Did you?
Sweepstakes.
I didn't get invited into the sweepstake.
I kind of got coerced into it, to be fair.
No.
But I'm into it. So Croatia needs to win tonight.
Because I won 70 quid on the Euros last time.
There you go.
So there you go. John says if these workers who are on strike want to get greedy and demand more than 8% over 2 years, whereas people in the private sector will be getting 3 or 4% if they're lucky, then they should do what they do in the private sector and give them a basic pension. And the money they save on pensions put in their hourly pay. Because public sector workers do tend to get better pensions.
On the issue of the rails, Jay says all big cities and towns should offer free parking while the trains are on strike, or at least subsidise it. The retailer needs this Christmas boost, and any help possible should be offered by the government.
It's all money, though, isn't it? It's all money because the councils say they're reliant on the money from the car parks.
Skint, aren't they?
I mean, there's just no easy answer to any of this, nor is there when it comes to the firefighters, because coming up we're going to be looking at firefighters. They've been balloted on strike action. We'll ask trade unionist Paul Embry how much of a risk this is going to be for the public.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8". My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other pay-per-review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
(7:26) morning to you. Still to come on the programme.
7:45, Kate Hardcastle's here. She's got lots of tips on how to have a frugal Christmas without being a Scrooge. I think it's really important this year, all focusing on Christmas traditions and giving your family a lovely day without breaking the bank.
Well, she brought that Christmas pudding in the other week that was £25. I mean, I still can't get over that, as you can tell.
Yeah.
It was very tasty.
It was the best one.
It was the best one. But I mean, 25 quid for a Christmas pudding.
Well, who likes Christmas pudding, anyway?
At 8:20, as the World Cup continues, we'll take a look at the worrying rise in gambling. New research reckons that about $35 billion will be wagered on the tournament this year.
and we're asking you to get in touch on all of the topics of the day. GB News at gbnews.uk, talking about the Labour plan to devolve more power to local authorities. Sandra says this is the last thing the UK needs, more power to the councils. God forbid, they have far too much power now. They should learn from devolution, and look what has happened.
I think I agree with you on that one, Sandra. And on the strikes, Eileen says the pay demands through the state sector are so obviously unrealistic, it must be clear to everyone they're just a clumsy exercise to go on strike.
Just taking advantage of a government under pressure in many ways.
Maybe, I don't know.
And we were talking about sleep a little bit earlier in the programme, and one of the suggestions was to put your head in the freezer. Richard, unimpressed, he said, hilarious! Just have a brisk, cold, invigorating shower.
Sounds worse to me. That sounds worse, a cold shower. But anyway, keep your thoughts coming through. GB Views at gbnews.uk.
Now, firefighters have become the latest group to vote on whether to walk out after rejecting a 5% pay offer.
The FBU, the Fire Brigades Union, says there's a remarkable strength of feeling amongst firefighters and control staff on what it called a derisory pay offer.
Well, joining us now is firefighter and trade unionist Paul Embry. Good morning to you, Paul. Look, I suppose when it comes to firefighters, it's very much like with doctors and nurses. It's an emotive one, isn't it? Because what you do is frontline life-saving, and automatically people worry if you're out on strike, people might die.
Of course, and it's entirely understandable that people do feel that way. And I can say, as somebody who has taken strike action before as a firefighter, it's an agonising decision to take. You don't join the fire service to withdraw your labour. You join the fire service to protect people. But I would simply say, Isabel, we need to look at the facts. And as far as firefighters are concerned at the moment, they're being treated extremely unfairly. Over the last decade, they've lost something like £4,000 a year in real wages. And this time we're being asked to take another significant real terms pay cut, and at a time when firefighters, like everybody else across the country, are really struggling to make ends meet. I've been a firefighter for 25 years, and this is the first time really that I've had colleagues say to me they can't afford to buy their kids Christmas presents. They're struggling to pay their mortgage bills, their energy bills, etc. So it's a decision that none of us want to take, but when you consider the paltry pay offer that's been tabled, we've really been left with no other option, frankly.
Just to throw the other side out, because I know people are going to email in with this point, Paul. And I mean, I know a lot of firefighters, actually, just the way things have worked out in my life. You all have second jobs, or a lot of you do.
Some people do. That's certainly true. But the reality of that, though, Stephen, is that people feel they need those second jobs in order to increase their income, in order to be able to give themselves and their families a decent standard of living. I mean, I know firefighters, for example, who, in addition to the 42 hours a week they do contractually for the fire service, go out and do another job and sometimes are working 80 hours a week. Some of them are working 6 or 7 days a week. Now, no firefighter actually wants to do that. They do that because, first and foremost, as I say, they want to increase their income, and particularly during an acute cost of living crisis where, as I said earlier, people really are struggling to pay their bills. That's almost become a necessity now for a lot of firefighters.
I suppose the issue in all of this is, can you really have inflation matching pay rises? We know that the tax burden that the government has put on us is at a 70-year high. We know already that the government is saying there isn't enough cash for essential services like the NHS to give everybody the pay rises that they are asking for. And let's be honest, there are some big asks out there. Nurses, for example, asking for RPI plus 5%, so that brings it in at around 17%. I mean, it's just unrealistic.
I mean, I don't think it is. I mean, in terms of inflation, the reality is that the current inflation we're experiencing is not being driven by wage increases. It's being driven largely as a result of the war in Ukraine, the opening up of the economy after the pandemic. So we're not actually seeing a wage price spiral. We're seeing the opposite. I would also make the point, actually, that we're about to enter potentially a long and very deep recession. And the last thing we should be doing as we go into a recession, in my view, is actually cutting people's pay. Because then the question becomes, where is the demand going to come from in the economy? Where is the growth going to come from in the economy? We end up getting into that downward spiral. And also, I would just simply point out, look, some people are still doing very nicely. We're seeing city bonuses go up at the moment. We're seeing executive pay increase quite handsomely at the moment. Some of our corporations are recording record profits. So some people are doing quite well. And our argument is, look, we need to reallocate some of that money, frankly, to people at the other end of the scale.
Right, you say 5% is derisory. Would you be happy, Paul, if you were offered 8% over 2 years?
Well, I mean, look, no trade unionist would give away their bottom line in the middle of a dispute. But what my union has said, and what I completely agree with, is, look, we need an offer on the table that addresses the current cost of living crisis. Giving firefighters a 5% pay increase when inflation is running at something like 11% is not acceptable. So let the employers make an offer, and if it's a reasonable offer, obviously we would consider that.
Yeah, but no, I mean, look, you're not speaking on behalf of the union this morning, are you, Paul? Come on, and we know you from working here. Come on, man to man. What would you think, as an individual, as a single human being in this position, if you were offered 8% over 2 years, would you think, actually, that's not bad?
Well, I mean, I appreciate you trying to put me on a hook here, Stephen, and I would probably be doing the same thing in your position. But look, if we got an increase on the offer of 5%, then obviously I and every other firefighter would consider that seriously. But it has to come much closer to addressing the cost of living crisis. And genuinely, in direct answer to your question, I don't know. That's something that I would think about. But what I do know is the offer on the table at the moment is nowhere near good enough.
Okay.
Paul,
it's worth a try, Paul.
Yeah.
Good to see you this morning. Thank you very much indeed.
Oh, it's such a difficult one, isn't it? Because, of course, we know that if inflation really does get embedded, it hurts the most vulnerable. Pay rises stoke inflation.
Well,
so what do you do?
This is the problem. I mean, Paul's quite right. The inflation we're seeing now hasn't been created by pay rises. But if you have pay rises to deal with it, then what you're going to see is increased inflation because of the pay rises. There's no easy answer.
There is no easy answer, and thank goodness we don't have to make those decisions, just ask the questions. But look, let us know your views. Do you sympathise with Paul Embry and those people? They put themselves in harm's way. If you know anything about what, the training that goes into making our firefighters, it's absolutely extraordinary, and every day they're, putting themselves in harm's way for us. Should they be paid a fair wage for it? What is a fair wage? That's the big question.
I was going to say, let us know anyway what you think. gbviews@gbnews.uk. We've got the papers in a couple of minutes with Ben Glaze and Dawn Neeson.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
We are GB News right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. We're just discussing how old we are.
Oh,
what a privilege
Isabel's
it is.
ancient, aren't you?
I am, yeah.
A lot of work done.
Yeah, I'm actually 65. Looking good for it. We're going to take a look at your front pages this morning. This is the front of the Express, leading with England's good news in the football last night, of course, winning 3-0 against Senegal. Also talking about the military's role in this winter of discontent. They're going to be standing by to keep emergency services ticking over in the face of all those strikes. They're going to be busy. There's a lot of them.
Yeah, The Guardian is looking at the health and wealth divide, with economic inactivity due to sickness at its highest level since records began.
Here's the Telegraph that covers those rail strikes over Christmas. RMT, of course, rejecting that two-year 8% pay offer, pressing ahead with their December walkout.
And The Times says face-to-face GP appointments for mid-life health checks are going to be abolished and moved online in order to help ease pressure on the NHS. Midlife health checks that we're all entitled to and not any of us get or knew about, which is odd.
It was a thing. Well, now we do, so we're going to put even more pressure on the NHS. We're joined by the former editor of the Daily Star, Dawn Newsom, and deputy political editor of the Daily Mirror, Ben Glaze. Welcome back to both of you. And Dawn, I know you're not watching the World Cup, but the rest of the nation is gripped by it. So tell us, what are the Sun saying on their front page? Actually, this is not so much a World Cup story as a sort of news story.
It is actually. It's more serious. I'm sorry if I depressed everyone. I mean, you know, come on, England. I want them to do well. Obviously, it's not the players. Talking of the players, this is England's Raheem Sterling, who had to fly home urgently from the World Cup last night after he was notified that his house, which I think is in Surrey, had been raided by armed raiders, and his fiancée Paige Millian and their two little boys, who I think 3 and 5. Were at home while this happened. So obviously, you know, he wants to be with his family at this time.
It's just disgusting.
It is, and you know, it's like, thankfully nobody was hurt, but £300,000 worth of watches are reported to have stolen. I mean, I can't get my head around spending that much on a watch, but it's just terrifying. And you know, there has been quite a few of these raids, haven't there, when footballers are quite clearly, you know, they're not at home. So the houses are being targeted, not just in London and the South East, but also up in the Manchester area as well. A lot of players have had their houses raided. And, you know, these gangs don't mess around. They come in and
these are serious criminals.
They're proper criminals, yeah. They're armed. They tie if there's anyone in the residence up. The only thing is that the burglars, armed raiders in this case, may have thought that Paige and the boys were still out in Qatar because they had posted social media pictures from out there saying, here we are supporting Daddy, etc. So they may have thought that the house was empty. But this is the thing as well, and the police are saying in this particular piece that so many very wealthy people, not just footballers, are posting so much on social media now. It's like, here's me on my latest holiday in the Bahamas, whatever, that they're literally an open invitation to burglars.
I mean, utterly terrifying for anyone in that situation, but for children who are already afraid of the dark, typically monsters under the bed, whatever it be. The child has lived through an armed raid on their house.
3 and 5.
How on earth are those children never going to go to sleep again?
No, I know. Yeah,
it's terrible. I mean, obviously everyone knows Raheem Sterling's out with the England squad, was out with the England squad. And as Dawn said, the fact that his fiancée, Paige, had perhaps posted on social media with the two boys as well that they were on this cruise ship where the Wags are staying during the tournament. Perhaps the armed raiders thought that they'd have a clean run when they targeted the house. It was obviously, you know, it's not an opportunistic burglary. They obviously targeted, thinking that everyone was away. And those poor boys, 3 and 5 years old, in the house whilst all this unfolded.
Unbearable.
They're going to have nightmares for the rest of their lives, aren't they?
Let's have a look at the Times. Ben, should we? I mean, their headline writers have had a field day, haven't they? Met Office brace for lightning strikes as pay storm gathers.
Yeah, it's a gift for the pun sub-editors writing those headlines in the Times, isn't it? I mean, it looks like the Met Office is going to become the latest area of the public sector to go out on strike, with the Prospect Union balloting for action.
What do they want? Better weather?
Don't we all want better weather? Obviously, it's about pay, with inflation soaring away at 11.1%. And obviously there are strikes gripping various parts of the economy. And the weather forecasters are going to be next. And also it's not just the weather forecasters that we see on our televisions, you know, telling us it's going to be sunny in Surrey and raining in Newcastle. The Met Office provides updates for government agencies, for the armed forces. So if you're thinking of planning a training exercise on Salisbury Plain, you might ask the Met Office what the weather will be like in a month or something like that. It's those people who are going to be going on strike. So it does have, wider implications, I think, this potential.
But doesn't it feel like people, all these, I mean, the unions at least, but Prospect Union is on this one, just feel like they're jumping on the bandwagon now?
Well, they would say they're representing their workers, wouldn't they? I mean, we're all affected by rising inflation, and very few sectors, very few industries are getting inflation-linked pay rises.
Well, yeah.
Well, 19%. I mean, you can't. I mean, if that's what inflation is predicted to go up to at some point, you can't. You
just can't do it.
We can't afford it. But the other thing with the Met Office in particular going on strike, like we were discussing earlier on with the postal services, is there are alternatives. There are lots of private forecasting firms you can go to. So be careful, because you're striking yourself out of job.
But the interesting thing with the post office, I think we've talked to the CWU a few times, and when they outline what the problems are, it's not like they're just demanding more money. It's the way they're reforming the post office and the Royal Mail, which seems extraordinary when you see what they're trying to lay off all these people, then hire a load of them back on 0 hours and all the rest of it. Their demands actually seem comparatively reasonable, I would have said. But I mean, you raised a fair... I've put to them about, well, you're striking yourself out of a job, and they said, well, that's what they believe the bosses are trying to do. They're trying to run the business into the ground.
So damned if they do and damned if they don't, really, aren't they?
Well,
but with
I don't know.
With the Met Office, I mean, it's just look out the window. For most ordinary people, just look out the window and see what the weather's
don't you think
like.
We've all become hooked on forecasts? I swear, when we were younger, we've all got them on our phones. I never go anywhere without checking the forecast first. Never used to.
Alexa, what's the weather today?
Yeah, we like minute by minute.
I've got 3 weather apps, and if one is telling me something I don't quite like, I'll use the others. It's like stupid.
One thing they're all agreed on, Dawn, is that we've got a cold snap inbound. This polar blitz, or it was going to be the ogre from Oslo, as Nathan Rao was
I know, that was quite clever, wasn't it? Yeah.
So tell us, -8?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, last week, the Daily Star... I used to edit this paper. The Daily Star, it does love the weather story. It actually sells, by the way. It really sells newspapers.
Oh, yeah, we love the weather.
Yeah, we do. We are British. We love talking about the weather. But last week, we had a story about how we were going to get 4 inches. Do you remember that one, Steve?
Yes, I do.
Yes. That hasn't happened yet either, has it? But now, it's the coldest Christmas for 12 years, a 1,500-mile polar blitz, a -8 degrees, 3-week freeze and snow. And now that is actually colder than St Petersburg, where it's only -2 predicted over the next few weeks. So it's like, as you say, we're all obsessed by the weather, and it's like, you know, the serious side, as you were discussing earlier, is, you know, take precautions, you know, make sure you're wrapping up warm, keep an eye out for elderly people, etc., etc. But I just like the idea of a white Christmas. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, so do I.
Romantic, aren't we?
Yeah, you know, if we have to wrap up warm to facilitate that, so be it. But the idea of looking out on Christmas morning, seeing the snow on the ground, I've only seen it once, I think, in 15 years, the last 15 years, and that was December 2010. I was actually driving around the country quite a lot at that point as well, so it was a bit difficult getting around. But seeing the snow on Christmas morning, magical, isn't it?
Especially if you're going to be home in Wales.
Well, exactly, yeah.
And your little girl, the first time she'll see snow.
Well, yeah. I'm not sure what she'll make of it. But
they always love it.
She's 13 months.
Oh. She can eat it, in my experience.
Well, actually,
everything goes in the mouth then.
I always think, well, I hope you've told Father Christmas that she's arrived.
Yeah, we actually had a bad experience with Father Christmas last night. Turns out she's not a huge fan of Father Christmas.
Really?
They grow into it.
One, I don't know.
They grow into it.
Oh, did she? Oh, she met one, did she?
She did, yeah.
Oh, but not the real one.
Yeah.
Possibly not
they
the real
can be quite terrifying.
But all
bearded men.
All little kids have got that picture when they're very young, like your daughter, of meeting Santa for the first time. Not the real one, obviously. He's busy at the moment. But you know, and looking terrified.
Yeah.
I mean, they're like, oh my God, what is this?
Yeah, I think worse than terrified.
Well, wait till you tell him that he'll be appearing in her bedroom in the middle of the night. It'll be more frightening. Right, we'll leave it at that. Dawn, Ben, thank you both very much. We'll see. Yeah, I know we've got to move on, I'm afraid. We'll have more after 8:30 from both Dawn and Ben.
Now, Christmas is always an expensive time, but of course it's harder this year because of the massive strain on household finances with those soaring food and energy bills.
Well, record food price inflation suggests there'll be less lavish feasts on many dinner tables than in previous years, as the cost of a traditional turkey, with all the trimmings, now has risen by 11%.
So, how do we have a thrifty Christmas without being a complete Scrooge? Let's talk to our favourite expert, Kate Hardcastle. Good morning, Kate. So what are the top tips and what do we need to be looking out for?
Good morning, guys. Your smiling faces make my Monday morning. What tips are we going to look out for? We're going to start round the Christmas dinner table, both. Have you measured out, when you've been doing your Christmas food shopping, portion sizes? That's the first tip I would say. Some really alarming statistics are that in the UK we waste up to 6.6 million tonnes of food a year, and a lot of that comes at Christmas. It's estimated 2 million turkeys have been wasted and 5 million Christmas puddings. It's definitely not me because I love a Christmas pudding, but making sure that you measure out your portion sizes around the table, I think will really make a difference in your spend. It did for me, and I think actually you then are encouraged to spend a little less, buy a little less and waste a little less, but that's completely what we want.
It's always, I mean, I know we do the leftovers and all the rest of it, but there is always loads of stuff at Christmas that gets chucked out.
Completely. And I think when you think about the table as well, it's not just the portion size of everything, it's how much stuff we buy. I had to have a reality check when we were just buying so many different types of potatoes and doing it this way for Uncle so-and-so and this way for Dad, this way for the kids. So I think it's also about getting realistic about what you put on that day. It's very stressful for a lot of people and there's so much cost going into it. I think a lot of it because of this presumption about trying to get it right. One of the things that also might help is if you've got guests incoming, could you share the courses? So if you're going to have this traditional starter and main and desserts and maybe some mince pies to go as well, could people bring different elements of it to take the cost down and you sharing the cost then? Because it does tend to fall on the people that are hosting. So Can you create your portion sizes? Can you share out the responsibility? And actually, can you just put less options on the table?
And that means less work as well. Share out the responsibility and the cost. Less work to do.
Yep.
Look, obviously, lots of pressure on the numbers of turkeys. There's a big shortfall in turkeys, isn't there? But I suppose there's an opportunity there. If you can't get the traditional spread, actually, you can do something completely different, which actually could end up being cheaper, whether it be a frozen bird of some sort or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I was looking into some prices this morning, Isabel, just to give an idea on that portion sizing. And I do talk about turkey crowns quite a lot in that this time of year, I think we all want that image of big bird on the table. But actually, you've got to get realistic about it. And if a crown's going to help you save your budget, why not do that? So I was looking, you can have a look at any site that gives the portion sizes, but I was looking at the Good Housekeeping Institute. I do think those measurements are really worthwhile if you want to have a look. For 8 people, you're looking at a minimum of 3.5 kilogram turkey. And at the moment, you can buy a frozen 3.5 kilogram turkey at Tesco. It's a frozen one, turkey crown, for £22.50. You would also, for roasties for 8 people, be looking at 2 kilograms of potato. And one of the best prices I saw for a nice spud was £1 there at Sainsbury's. So actually, once you start to get that in mind, it works out. But you're right as well. Take the pressure off. If you don't all like turkey, why are you eating it? Choose a different meat. Choose something completely different. You just don't have to run by the same rules.
No, quite right. You also mentioned earlier on the sort of traditional spread, where for some reason we all decide we're going to make starters. How many times have we eaten the starter and think, well, I mean, I'm stuffed already?
This is it completely. I am going to just reveal our family secret. We went to a Christmas Day brunch about 3 years ago. We've not looked back. We did it because of COVID with less people around the table. And actually this whole honesty session came where people are like, well, I don't like the turkey. I don't actually like this. The dinner's too much for me anyway. And I'm the one making it all thinking, why am I doing this? Everyone just wanted pancakes and waffles. That's where we're at. So if anyone fancies the Christmas dinner, they've normally had it perhaps a couple of weeks beforehand. The pressure's off, the costs have come down, and actually the kids are much happier. Yes, there isn't that traditional festive image of us all around the table eating, but the thing is we're together and we're enjoying it. And I think that's the thing. We've just got to lift the lid on these pressures. And actually, I think social media drives a lot of this. Same when it comes to your decor, same when it comes to the gifting. You've got to realise that this year's got to be more than ever a year of giving the kindness rather than the material goods. If it's putting pressure on you, it's just not worth it.
Yeah, we've all got too much stuff anyway, haven't we? Don't need more stuff. I keep saying when grannies message me, what should I get the kids or whatever, and I say, oh, just some time with you. We just want one-on-one with the kids, maybe a trip to the panto or something, but no more stuff. There's just too much stuff everywhere. We just got to take the pressure off, as you say, Kate, and try and live in the moment. It's only one day at the end of the day, isn't it?
It's one day.
Don't need to throw everything at
and
it.
I'm hoping to come back on and talk about some really good gift ideas too that means other people can benefit from your kindness. So that would be great.
Oh, yeah, those charity gifts and things. I think they're a fantastic idea. Kate, as always, a delight. Thank you very much indeed. See you very soon.
Thank you.
Those charity gifts, I really like those because you can pick if you're into wildlife or if you're into education, or you can buy books for kids in Africa or wherever, or loads of places in the world you can do stuff. And stuff, of course, here in the UK.
It's not just about gifts, is it? But I have to say, when it comes to Christmas dinner, I am traditional. I do like all the trimmings. We had a little Christmas round 1 yesterday because my mother-in-law's away over Christmas. Oh, it was fabulous. It was fabulous.
Yeah, I like a traditional Christmas dinner, just with a nut roast.
There you go.
More coming up. First, so here's your weather.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking to be largely cloudy, but it will feel chilly in the brisk easterly breeze. Let's take a look at the details. So areas in the far southwest of England may see the odd brighter spell, but the cloud will make it a grey day for most. Showers will also fringe southern coasts. A slight shift in the wind direction will bring the increasing risk of showers across southeast England. Otherwise, it's largely cloudy but feeling cold. And cloudy but a little light rain is possible for parts of Wales. This may include a small amount of sleet over the mountains. Cold and cloudy across central areas of England, but with the wind swinging around to more of a northeasterly, there is an increasing risk of a few light showers here and there later. It's eastern coasts that will see the most frequent showers today, the occasional one of which may be heavy. They'll feed inland on the brisk breeze, so it is worth holding on to an umbrella there. The showers and cloud will also push into eastern Scotland. However, northwest Scotland will likely see the brightest skies across the whole of the UK, thanks to the development of some sunny intervals. Western counties of Northern Ireland are also in with a chance of seeing some sunny spells today, but eastern coasts will be affected by isolated showers from the Irish Sea. So we will retain a very similar setup through Monday afternoon and evening, with showers chiefly in the east, and that's how the weather is shaping up for the rest of the day.
Hello there, it's Eamonn Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
England secured their place in the World Cup quarter-finals with a 3-0 win against Senegal.
Good morning to you. It's 8 o'clock. It's Monday, the 5th of December. This is Breakfast on GB News with Isabel and Stephen.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. The Three Lions have made it through to the World Cup quarter-finals, where they'll face reigning champions France on Saturday. England's 3-0 win against Senegal last night saw captain Harry Kane score his first goal of the tournament.
The Labour Party is launching a new report on the country's future, with Sir Keir Starmer promising the biggest ever transfer of power to the British people. But what does that really mean for you? We're live in Leeds, where that announcement will take place.
And the RMT unions rejected an improved pay deal, meaning it's more likely strike action will go ahead this Christmas. An increased offer of 8% over 2 years wasn't enough to stop the strikes.
Well, do get in touch. You know how to join the conversation this morning. Send us an email on that strike action, which is really interesting, actually, because we've been talking about 8% over 2 years and no redundancies till 2024. Julie, her perspective is the RMT have been offered 4% this year, 4% next, with 13 changes to terms and conditions and the threat of redundancies after 2024. So it just depends which side you see it from.
Well, Barry has got in touch that the general consensus is things will eventually normalise. When and if this does happen, would it be fair to ask the pay rise given to match inflation be returned to match the deflation, as he puts it?
Well, we shall have to wait. I mean, I very much doubt that will happen, Barry, but I mean, I get your point. If you want to get involved, GB Views at gbnews.uk.
So it is our top story this morning. Something to smile about. England have progressed to the World Cup quarter-finals after a comfortable 3-0 victory over Senegal.
Now, Captain Harry Kane scored his first goal of the tournament, but a lot of the focus was on Jude Bellingham, who just set so much up yesterday, impressed with a man-of-the-match display in the heart of the Three Lions midfield.
Well, Gareth Southgate and his side now face their toughest test yet when they take on the reigning world champions France with a place in the semi-finals at stake.
Now, understandably, there could be a few sore heads this morning on the commute to work. England fans were out in droves in pubs and fan zones last night. So our reporter, Will Hollis, decided to join the party in Nottingham.
It might be 4 degrees, but a Winter World Cup isn't all that bad.
Nice and cold out here, but I'm sure it's warm there.
I'm excited to see Phil Foden and Jack Grealish.
I've got my gloves, so warm me up, got the bib. Doesn't matter what the weather is. Doesn't matter. It's England, isn't it?
We could do a gazebo, though.
We could do a gazebo.
It's not the cold that's got England fans shivering at the Trent Navigation in Nottingham. There's a different kind of tension in the knockout stages. The Lions may have finished top of their group, but Senegal are champions in Africa.
I'd like to think we can win 2-0. 1-0 will do.
If we attack with a bit of freedom tonight, I think we'll do perfectly fine.
They're going to win the first half, lose the second half, but win the match.
What does that mean?
They're going to win.
A sluggish start, but then England find their feet. Once, and then again in the first half.
We've got 2 in the bag. I'm feeling positive. I'm calm now. I hope we win 5-0.
I went to the toilet twice and missed both of them. I'm really not happy about it. But it's coming home, so it don't matter.
As the beer flows, so do the goals. The ending is inevitable now. England 3, Senegal 0.
We won, we're through to the next round.
I was confident, and the boys, they performed.
England march on with old rivals in sight. The last time they played France in a World Cup, England won. That was 1982. This time, France are reigning champions.
We're going to play France, we're going to beat them, man. If we go toe-to-toe with them, then we'll beat them. If we go defensive, then we'll lose.
But for now, that doesn't stop the singing. Will Hollis for GB News in Nottingham.
Paul Kite's here. there was no alcohol ban in Nottingham, was there?
No, they had a good time. Good on them.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it, and I try and keep a lid on it. The amount of World Cups that I've seen over the years, and we get so far, and then there's always disappointment at the end of it. And I even hate saying it, but it does feel different this year. It does. The players, I love the way the players are, and I've got to say the way Gareth Southgate's looking after things as well. I was a little concerned when we drew 0-0 to USA, but I'm beginning to think the plan is absolutely on the money.
Weren't you one of the ones thinking, actually, he's doing this wrong at the time? Because I remember Zach, our producer who handles all the sport out here, saying he thought Southgate was doing all right.
Yeah,
and you were being quite negative about him.
You know what? I think it's probably because I was just trying to just keep a lid on the excitement, Stephen, is what it was. No, I'll be honest with you, I was concerned. I don't like the negative tactics. This is what was worrying me because we've got so much strength going forward, and playing to our strengths is so important when it comes to England. And although it was the knockout, although it was the group stage, and a point is a good point against USA because it progresses us. I still wanted to see more, and maybe that's just me being a little greedy and wanting a little more excitement and want to be entertained the whole time.
No, I don't think that's greedy. I think that's fair enough.
Do you think so?
Yes,
Thanks,
but,
Izzy.
Look, if we're talking about the story of the night last night, we had the first goal yet from the England captains, a bit of relief from him.
Yeah.
But there were 3 goals. It was a comfortable win
Yeah.
against Senegal. As you say, it just
was.
feels like they're a really together team. They seem like a nice bunch of lads.
They are, and they're professionals. I think I've discussed, I mean, the amount of times that we've discussed Harry Kane and how important, what a great fella he is, and he's got a great family, and he's completely dedicated to his sport and to his job. You know, we've seen players that come in and out, and then they get involved in scandals. Even if we look back to the days of the 90s, and there was the dentist chair and the drinks, they are 100% professionals these days, and they're young men that are actually dedicated to what they do. There's no scandal around them, and someone like Harry Kane, and that's it. And he says, you know, I remember he's speaking to his mum and says, oh, it's actually quite boring because he loves his family and he loves his football, and that's what he's dedicated to.
It's quite interesting. I mean, obviously, people are saying, well, Harry... Especially with the Americans, which is a very young team, and they were saying, well, Harry can't keep up with them. He's getting too much on the older side now to keep up with some of the youngsters. But isn't it interesting how, actually, leading it from an older age, as he is in that sense, but there's a lot of young talent being brought up with it, and he and Gareth Southgate seem to be honing them.
Well,
nicely.
look at Jude Bellingham. Jude Bellingham's 19 years old, and if you looked at him play and also hear the way he speaks, this is someone who you'd think had been in the game for years and is in his late 20s. But he's captained Borussia Dortmund. He's 19 years old. He's a special, special talent. When he left Birmingham and went over to Germany, Birmingham City retired his shirt. Now, this is something that they do in America when you've got a great legend. They say, number 22, you know, it will never be worn again because it's dedicated to this player. Whereas Jude Bellingham, you think this... And he was 17. And people are thinking, this is crazy. I'm thinking, what are you doing this for? But you could see, because they knew how good he was. And at 19, he's this good, and he's got, you know, a very old head on young shoulders. He will move on.
But we had to get France, didn't we, in the next one?
But you know what? Don't worry about that.
They won it.
Don't worry. Of course they do. They're the world champions at the moment. They're the world champions, but you can't win a World Cup without, you know, with an easy ride. And if we're going to have to meet them at some point, so why not? Let's do it now. And, you know, we've beaten France twice in World Cups. 66. See, there you go. For those that... I don't know. It was 66 and 82, which didn't go quite so well. But we've only once won in 8 meetings with France. France are a fantastic side. But the talk that you are going to hear a lot is Kylian Mbappe against Kyle Walker. This is the talk you're going to hear of a lot.
Well, but you see, those sort of traditions of saying we've only won 1 in 8, when games have been played on and shown on ITV...
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
We don't win. We don't win when it's played on ITV, apart from one donkey's years ago or whatever. Well, threw that out last night.
I know, but you know what?
It's all about challenging that thing, isn't it?
I tell you what, Stephen, there's one thing I'm really happy about, and that's no psychic animal this year. You know, there's always been Paul the octopus, and there's a tortoise, and goodness knows, and a platypus. Always something that, and then they get a dog that will appear on some show. You're going to tell me that we've got a dog?
We will
go to the bowl, and it's like, yeah, there's none of that. But I tell you, there was one thing that I have noticed, and you know, there's 2 things that I love more than anything else. One is my sport, and the other thing is my fashion, as you know.
Yes.
And you can always tell. But if you remember back in 2018, Gareth Southgate wore the waistcoat. Yeah. And everybody was talking about the waistcoat. I have noticed there's something... And there we are. There's the waistcoat from 4 years ago. But there is something else that he's worn for every game so far. And he's almost dressing it down slightly. He's wearing the smart jacket. And hopefully we're going to see it in just a second. It's kind of like a woolen... It's like a woolly jumper with a zip. And he wears it. There it is. Oh, there you go. You see that now? Every time he's worn that...
In a hot country...
I know, this is what I'm thinking. It's a very warm country, but there is a lot of aircon around the stadium, which makes it a little chilly, which is probably the reason he's wearing that. But every game so far... Now, nobody has picked up on that. There's nothing from any fashion magazine, but I have noticed it first. So trust me, we're going to see more of that. So that could be the lucky jumper, and I think maybe I may get myself.
Do you think he'd not dare wash it?
Do you think so?
Do we have to? Do we have to?
Well,
I don't know whether you just wear it or then you don't wash it. Is that the way the rule works? I'm not really sure.
You might wash the look out of it.
Well, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. We're into heartbreak territory anyway. Fingers and toes crossed.
We're not. It's no heartbreak.
But I think we were into heartbreak territory last night.
Yeah.
It is. Well, people think Senegal, oh no, what's going to happen? Maybe it's going to go to penalties. But that's the France game. Now, as far as I'm concerned, this is a 50-50 game. It could go either way, and it is going to be a heck of a game. Next Saturday, 7 o'clock, for a place in the semi-final of the World Cup. That's going to be on, I believe, on the BBC.
Yeah,
I believe on the BBC. Yeah.
Right, Paul, lovely. Thank you very much for bringing us up to date on the World
Cup. Do you like the fact I'm enjoying my sport for once?
I'm really enjoying it. I'm really, really enjoying it. Yeah, it's great.
For once, I know what I'm talking about.
I absolutely noticed. I'm thinking, is there a voice in the ear, or is there something? But you're all over it, and I love that fact.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel responsible for that.
Oh, you're responsible.
Thank you very
100%.
much.
It's nothing to do with the wonderful team that's doing absolutely
It's all
great.
OK, fine. I know what you're saying.
Thanks, Paul.
Now, Sir Keir Starmer will today promise the biggest transfer of power from Westminster to the British people as he unveils a new report on Britain's future this morning.
The report, titled A New Britain, makes multiple recommendations, including handing more power to local authorities, moving civil servants out of London, and once again suggesting reforming the House of Lords.
Well, let's talk to our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, who's in Leeds this morning, where all this is going to be announced a little bit later on. What is on the table here, Darren, and how likely is it to become Labour Party policy?
Yeah, very good morning, Stephen and Isabel, from a pretty cold, pretty chilly Leeds this morning. Keir Starmer's key argument here, if you like, is that he thinks power is too centralised in Westminster in the UK. If you look at other European countries, there is more devolved power, and this is part of a wider kind of consultation, if you like, a wider report looking at how you devolve power across the UK. Now, it's been drawn up actually by Gordon Brown. You remember him, the former Labour Prime Minister. He's been working on this for the last 2 years and includes, as I say, devolving more power and more money to local councils and authorities, to the mayors across the different parts of the UK, and indeed to devolve governments too. It means transferring lots of civil servants, around 50,000 or 10%, out of London. And interestingly and rather eye-catchingly, it also involves abolishing the House of Lords, at least in its current form. What this report is likely to suggest is they want to see a wholly elected second chamber, that the upper chamber would change. Now, the House of Lords has come in for a hell of a lot of criticism, hasn't it, in recent years? Many suggesting it's become too bloated. It's got over 800 members. That is linked to cronyism, i.e. Prime Ministers have used it as a way of rewarding friends in the past. But, as you've suggested, Stephen, this is merely just a consultation, i.e. Gordon Brown's drawn up this report. The Labour leader is now going to go and ask everyone else what they think about it. And even though Labour is suggesting that, yes, they are committed to abolishing the House of Lords, it may not happen if Sir Keir Starmer becomes Prime Minister in his first term. There's been a bit of a row in the background, if you like, about House of Lords reform. But in the end, Labour's big kind of ideological argument in all of this is, and we're going to hear from Keir Starmer a little later on this morning here in Leeds, he's saying that things like the Northern Powerhouse and levelling up are great ideas from the Conservative Party, but you can't really do it if the power is not in local communities. And he'll also argue, i.e. he might not have backed Brexit, but Brexit's all about taking back control, but that control cannot simply reside in Westminster. So it's going to be fascinating listening to both Gordon Brown and indeed Keir Starmer a little later on this morning. But there will be criticism about what is their position, and there'll be questions about it too, on that House of Lords reform.
Darren, thank you very much indeed. Well, let's get the take now of the assistant editor of The Spectator, Cindy Yu, on this and the other big political stories of the day. Good morning to you. I suppose from, you know, the public's point of view, the big question is whether or not this will resonate and whether or not it could do well for Labour at the polls.
Well, laws reform actually doesn't really come up very often on the doorstep, so it can be seen as a way that the Westminster Village is just looking at itself. At the same time, when things go wrong in the House of Lords, people will notice that. You know, we're talking at the time when Baroness Mone is under a lot of scrutiny and pressure over her role in being having a PPE firm linked to her that made £29 million of profit. There's also this huge controversy over Boris Johnson's honours list, where a parliamentary researcher in her 20s has been nominated for a peerage, and the question is, you know, what contribution has she made to the country that she deserves, or is it just the Prime Minister's allies and friends? So when these stories come to the fore, it does look like the House of Lords needs massive reform, but nobody really knows what the solution is. I'm not sure an elected chamber really is a solution, because it feels like it would just make our politics even more divisive.
Yeah, it sort of gets rid of the point of what it's meant to be there for, as reforming chamber. We're supposedly filled with experts.
Yes.
As you say, a 20-year-old isn't an expert on anything, really.
No. So I feel like, is there something to do with having a scrutiny panel where you look at the names that are being nominated, a bit like the Queen's honours list, you know, people who have actual services to various areas. But maybe you don't want to give civil servants that kind of power. So it's very, very difficult. It's very, very difficult.
Well, interesting that, you know, a big part of this plan that will be announced later under Gordon Brown's sort of stewardship is this transfer of power away from Westminster. And Gordon Brown calling it an answer to Scotland's desire for change. Now, that would be a workaround that certainly Westminster presumably would prefer than seeing it completely annexed off.
Nicola Sturgeon's not going to buy that, is she?
Well, I think it is interesting. Actually, in that part, Gordon Brown also compares the desire for Scottish people to have self-control over what's happening in their locality to Brexit, the Brexit vote, something which I think will be controversial to a lot of people, that your desire to leave the European Union is akin to a desire to leave the United Kingdom, which I thought was a bit of a spicy comparison. But I can see his point there.
But I mean, that all boils down to the very odd state of affairs, doesn't it? I mean, you know, the SNP saying Scotland never wanted to leave the EU, but they seem but they're desperate to leave the UK. I mean, none of it actually makes a huge amount of sense.
No.
When you look at it from a distance.
Not necessarily hugely consistent.
No, I think it's all about what's in the heart. They're driven by heart, aren't they?
Yeah, which is okay. I mean, there's a massive role for that in politics.
Yeah. On to things which may be a little bit more spicy. We've had lots of previews in the Mail, haven't we, over the last few days, over Matt Hancock's diary. So we can sort of read them in full from tomorrow, can't we?
If you pay the money.
If you pay the money. I mean, the Mail at the weekend was saying, jaw-dropping revelations. My jaw hasn't dropped yet.
No, and Stephen, on Saturday we were talking about this, weren't we? Just in general, how cringe the language used was. You know, it was just... It was as if it was written by a teenager, but...
Sigh.
Yeah. When he was campaigning for the national anthem to be sung while washing your hands instead of Happy Birthday, and he was overruled. Sigh. Yeah. But, you know, what is jaw-dropping is Matt Hancock's amount of kind of shoving blame onto everyone else. And we can already see care home leaders coming out and saying this is not what happened. We can already... I think we can expect Dominic Cummings, certainly, to come out and say this is not a rational or fair interpretation. So I think whatever brownie points Matt Hancock got from being on I'm a Celebrity, from being very bravely taking on those challenges, you know, this memoir is really taking a lot of brownie points away, really.
He said that he's asking for forgiveness for falling in love, not for what he did during the pandemic. Do you think the public will forgive him?
No. Not for that. I mean, you know, if anything, you should be apologising for that second thing, not the first thing. I mean, obviously, I mean... everyone falls in love, don't they? But I mean, hopefully. But it doesn't mean you have to act against your own guidance that you were making the rest of the country follow at that time. So it just also on a personal level, I am horrified for his family.
Yes.
You know, for his wife, for his ex-wife, possibly now, for his children, having to see all of this play out in the media, and his kids are a very sensitive age. I think they're teenagers. I just think it's an awful situation that he's put them in.
Maybe he was just ambushed by a beautiful woman, like Boris was ambushed by a cake.
Yes, yes, maybe.
Just ambushed in the corner, in the corridor. Anyway, there you go.
Can't help the heart.
I know. Can't help that. Exactly. It all boils down to the heart, doesn't it? The heart wants what the heart wants,
Yeah.
Cindy. Really good to see you. Thank you very much indeed.
Right, let's bring you up to date on the latest headlines this hour. And Britain is to see a decade of lost growth if action isn't taken by the government. The UK's biggest business group, the CBI, has forecast the country's already in recession, with rocketing inflation, negative growth and falling productivity. The group says stagflation, a combination of stagnation and rising prices, is preventing firms from investing.
Firefighters start voting today on whether to strike. 33,000 members of the Fire Brigade Union will decide if they should walk out. They've been given a 5% pay offer. They say that's derisory. Union bosses say people are desperate, some struggling to afford to live.
And after the excitement of England's win last night, it is the turn of Brazil in the last 16 of the Qatar World Cup. Later, Neymar could return from an ankle injury as the Brazilians face South Korea. And Japan hope to continue their giant killing form when they take on 2018 runners-up Croatia.
Adrian in Telford's been in touch. Morning, Adrian. Says the way firemen's shifts are arranged, or firefighters, we should say now, the way their shifts are arranged is so they only work half the hours they're paid for, spending their time on call but sleeping at the station. I spent 4 years on the fire authority and most of the time was attending meetings discussing allowing firefighters to have a second job.
Elizabeth says the country is on its knees. I don't think anyone should strike at the moment. There are millions of people who aren't on strike who don't earn as much as the strikers. And Carol says, whilst I sympathise, where does everyone think in this current climate the money's coming from?
Well, it's a fair point. It is a fair point. Anyway, let us know your thoughts. gbviews@gbnews.uk. And after the break, as the World Cup leads to a spike in gambling, we're going to talk to a former addict. Try and find out how you know when it has become a problem.
That's after your forecast. See you in a sec.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8". My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Welcome back. It's 8:26. Still to come on the programme this morning. It was the biggest spy scandal ever to rock the UK. And now the story of Kim Philby is being adapted for TV with Guy Pearce in the lead role. At 8:45, we'll be speaking to an expert on the disgraced double agent about how a Russian asset made it to the heart of power.
At 9:15, Andrew Pearce is going to give us his take on the big stories of the day. And don't forget, you can join in any of our discussions. GB Views at gbnews.uk. I was just going to say, there's so many. It's really interesting. Really interesting points. Rob says, Stephen, you mentioned all firefighters have second jobs. Well, I did correct that to say a lot of them do. Every worker in the country can give up their spare time and do this if they want to improve their income. Ian says, what a great pity you only report headline-grabbing percentage pay demands rather than looking at what the average person will get as a result of the settlement. And I get your point, Ian, on that, because there's if you earn £100 a week, a 10% pay rise is OK, but if you earn £1,000 a week, it wouldn't be. Get your point, but how do you then come to that figure of what the average is? Because obviously, there's so much difference between what people are earning, even amongst those people out on strike. So I understand your point. It's just very difficult to do. At least the percentage just covers it.
I just want to read this one out as well, because as you say, some really interesting emails coming in. Denise says, I'm the mother of an experienced firefighter, crew commander. He loves his job and we are all totally aware of the dangers of it. In the same way a nurse or doctor is historically dedicated to the NHS, so are fire service personnel. My son has always worked on at least 2 of his 4 days off and he doesn't mind, as never expected to earn a fortune in his day job. Striking only fuels any dissatisfaction within the service and disturbs the otherwise dedicated attitude of the personnel.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So, son in the fire service, dedicated to it, but you don't think the strike should be happening. Interesting. Well, keep your thoughts coming through. GB Views at gbnews.uk.
Now, we're going to talk about a really interesting subject now. Big problem during any kind of big sporting event, I suppose, and it's the English football fans are looking ahead to Saturday's clash with France. Many are actually concerned about the surge in bets being placed on the competition. Barclays claim that this tournament alone has increased the gambling market by over £28 billion, and thousands could be at risk of losing far more than their spare change.
Well, let's talk to spokesperson for the charity Gambling with Lives, Tom Fleming. Tom, good morning to you. First and foremost, and from your experience, how do you begin to realise, at what point do you know that actually gambling isn't just a bit of fun, it's becoming a problem?
Well, you can't always tell. It's very difficult to tell. I mean, as an individual, for you, perhaps it's when it stops becoming something that you enjoy and something that's more of a compulsion, then those are signs. But if you're looking out for someone someone in your family, you can't always tell because, it is an invisible addiction. For instance, this morning, I could have gotten up and drunk 6 pints and you would be able to tell. I could have gotten up and taken cocaine, you would have been able to tell. But I could have been up 2 hours ago and spent £10,000 gambling and lost it all, and you wouldn't have a clue. So it is very difficult to tell. The gambling industry, you referred there to sort of fun gamblers and addicted gamblers. the gambling industry actually make 86% of their profit from 5% of gamblers. So they don't really want you to be a fun gambler. So it is a very fine line. Even if you think you're gambling for fun, you may well be. There is always that risk that you can cross that line very, very, very easily.
Now, your own story saw you spending around 95% of your time on gambling, and it was football specifically that was the gateway into this addiction. So tell us a little bit about your own story.
It was, yeah, and I think my story is probably a very sort of widespread and familiar one. I love football ever since I was probably about 4 or 5. I probably placed my first bet when I was about 16. It wasn't necessarily a problem for quite a while. I sort of got to a point in my life where it did become a problem. It was exclusively football that I bet on, so I'm lucky in a sense. I work for a charity now, Gambling with Lives, and I know about the sort of more dangerous and addictive products, such as sort of casino games and slots. So I never gambled on them, thankfully. It was just football for me. And I think, I hit a point in my sort of mid to late 20s where addiction took over. And it took me to a really, really bad place. I didn't lose sort of life-changing sums of money, but it really did wreak havoc and, destroy my mental health. I'm quite a sort of sensible, intelligent, measured person, I would say, and I just couldn't stop. I just found it impossible to stop. And yeah, it was football. Football let me down essentially because I associated gambling with football because they've got this sort of long-standing link through the advertising and everything. You see your favourite ex-players, favourite ex-managers promoting gambling, so you think it's safe, and the only messages you get around the dangers are, the things that the gambling industry put out, like when the fun stops, stop. And I couldn't stop. And I blamed myself. I thought it was a problem with me, essentially, because I couldn't stop. So I thought that I was somehow to blame, but actually I now realise that I wasn't. But at the time I did. Thankfully, I was able to stop with the right support and the right tools. Like I said, I work for a charity now called Gambling with Lives that supports families who've lost loved ones to gambling-related suicides, of which there are over 400 a year. So I appreciate that I'm very lucky to be sitting here.
Yeah, I mean, look, as you mentioned earlier on, you talked about the compulsion. And now when you start dealing with compulsion, that's when you lose control. So that's when it sort of is. You can see it as anyone can see it as an illness then. So how difficult is it to cross that line and say, right, I am going to reach out for help to charities like yours or other gambling charities? Because is that the hardest first step, actually saying, I need some help here?
I think so, yeah. And, everybody gets taken in by the adverts and the marketing and stuff, which, you watch them and it's just... It's happy people gambling together in the pub and they're having a good time. So people take that in and they think that, that's what it should be like. And it's my fault if I can't stop. But actually, the reality is some gambling products have addiction and at-risk rates of 45%. And these are products that have been designed by another human being to be addictive. So it's not your fault if you get addicted to something like that. You've fallen prey to something. So it can be hard to reach out, but I would encourage anybody listening who thinks they might have a problem or thinks somebody in their family might have a problem to please do reach out, go to the NHS. That's the best treatment available. And also not to judge. And it's not your fault. It's a compulsion. It's an addiction. It's not your fault.
Well, look, we really appreciate your honesty and openness in talking us through your own experience of that. And as you say, over one suicide a day, more than one suicide a day in relation to gambling in this country. Really shocking statistics. So look, lots of support out there if people do want it. Tom Fleming, spokesperson for Gambling with Lives, thank you for that.
The house always wins.
That's the thing, yeah. 28 billion being made by the gambling industry this World Cup alone. There's not going to be any individuals winning that amount.
Well, no. Anyway, look, if you've got an issue, so reach out to those who can help you, and people will understand what you're going through. Look, coming up in a couple of minutes, we'll take you through the papers. Last time this morning with Ben Glaze and Dawn Neeson.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison? I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own news from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament.
But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere. Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
8:39 morning to you. Let's have a look at the newspaper front pages. We'll start with The Express, should we?
Yes, it's leading with England's good news in the football last night, winning 3-0 against Senegal. It also says military personnel are on standby to keep emergency services running in the face of strikes this winter.
The Guardian talks about a health and wealth divide, with economic inactivity due to sickness at its highest level since records began.
The Telegraph is covering the rail strikes over Christmas, with the RMT union rejecting the latest 2-year 8% pay offer and pressing ahead with those December walkouts.
I was just looking because all the papers have got like the footballers on. And Phil Foden, it was in one of the papers yesterday, Phil Foden, and, you know, outstanding as he is, apparently gets 200 grand a week from his club.
Not bad.
Can you imagine £200,000 a week? Wow. Anyway, but Dawn Neeson probably can. She'll be on that. So she was on that money.
Doesn't get out of bed for anything less.
When she was editor of the Daily Star, but then they got rid of her because she was costing them too much money. And deputy political editor of the Daily Mirror, Ben Glaze, who's clearly now after his boss's job as a result of looking for money. Good to see you both this morning. Ben, let's kick off with the Sun, should we? Looking at amoxicillin.
Yeah, this is right. This is the killer bug going around some children, strep A, which is causing quite a lot of anxiety among parents of young kids. And now this story in the Sun today is that the main drug that's used to treat strep A, which is properly called invasive group A streptococcus, that drug amoxicillin, there are shortages of it. They've got a quote here from a mum who went to a local Tesco to get some for her daughter. She couldn't find it. So it's as if parents haven't got enough to worry about now with wondering if their kids, if the sore throat, the cough they've got, if it's just a seasonal bug, cold, flu, or if it's something much more serious.
But any other sort of penicillin would work, wouldn't it? Flucloxacillin or just straight penicillin would actually help, wouldn't it?
I'm not a medical expert, so I believe it probably would. What the Sun is saying is that amoxicillin is the main drug that's used to treat it, and they've got a quote here from Asda as well that said whilst they've got some in stock, they're aware of market shortages, and obviously if this persists, then it could get worse.
This is really interesting because we've heard a lot, haven't we, about particular supply chains when it comes to medicines. We saw it with HRT, medicines going in short supply. But when you start seeing children die, I mean, 7 children since the season began in September, every parent I know so on edge about this strep A outbreak as it's being seen. And, you know, the symptoms are so common. You know, just every child has a sore throat and the odd rash here or there. It is alarming. And to hear that will worry a lot of parents, I think, this Monday morning.
Yeah, and as well, we were talking earlier about the pressure on the NHS. Well, of course, if you're a parent and you're worried about your child, well, you're going to err on the side of caution, aren't you?
Of course.
So if you're going to take your child to casualty, to accident and emergency, you're only going to pile more pressure on. But, of course, it's better to be safe than sorry, particularly when a child's involved.
Yeah, and it's important to stress, in case people are worried, that it is usually a very mild illness. It can be treated with antibiotics, but if there are any symptoms, you have to just go and get it checked out.
Yeah. Also, I do wonder if this is slightly sick. We had a GP on yesterday, and we're saying things like, if you know, not to panic, because if you can't take penicillins, for example, things like erythromycin, will work on this. So I wonder if this is a little bit of a panic over...
Those stories do worry me slightly, because as you say, Isabel, parents are very worried as it is. So a story like that, is it really helping? It's a little bit more like, you know, causing panic unnecessarily.
Yes, I tend to think so. Now, of course, this... it's Monday, isn't it? Yeah, get me days right. So this week we...
You are Stephen, it is Monday.
Well, to be fair, you're on day 4 of your working week, so it's
I'm not quite sure where I am. But this is the week we are expecting... I don't know if it has been confirmed yet, has it? But we are expecting the Harry and Meghan Netflix spectacular docu-mini-series to be launched.
Lordy, the fly on the wall that has followed this publicity-shy couple from California for how many years now? A year, 18 months, whatever it is. It's 6 parts. I mean, 6 parts. What are they going to do?
It'll be like 90 minutes apart, won't it?
Oh, God. Well, the trailer was released this week. It's very, very dramatic. There's 2 stories, basically. I mean, it's in every paper, but there's 2 stories. The Royals are saying we're just gonna never complain, never explain, and rise above it. So you've got Charles and Camilla out doing, you know, the good and worthy stuff they normally do, and obviously William and Kate can't answer back, so they're just smiling politely and getting on with their Earthshot stuff. But the Sun have got a very interesting story on this today. Part of the actual trailer for the Netflix documentary involves a bank of paparazzi, all their lenses trained, and the voiceover goes on. This is the sort of, you know, media intrusion Harry and Meghan had to flee from. This is what they faced. No, it's not, though. No, this is a picture that was taken from the premiere of the Harry Potter film in 2011.
Oh, I love it when the journalists go undercover and investigate these things.
Exactly. And, you know, look, I'm sure this is nothing probably to do with Harry and Meghan choosing this particular image. It's probably Netflix. It's a very dramatic image of paparazzi. But this wasn't the stuff that was aimed at Harry and Meghan. So I think this is Netflix being lazy photo research here. But it just makes you think, well, hold on, if that isn't accurate, what else involved in this isn't as accurate as it could be. As the Queen once infamously said, recollections may vary.
Will you watch it? Because over the weekend, everyone said, oh, we think it's awful, we think it's dreadful. Will you watch it? Yes. Well, I'm just like, no.
I won't, because I haven't got Netflix for a start.
Oh, there you go. You're
in that minority.
But well, it's a bit like the World Cup, isn't it? I have to follow it. I have to be aware of what's going on, even though I'm not watching it. So I'm probably not going to watch it. And you know, I don't know how you feel about this, Isabel, but just watching the clip, which was like, it was a few seconds. It wasn't very long. But Meghan Markle looks like she's on the verge of tears the whole time.
Oh, the whole time.
And, you know, I've interviewed rape victims and women in war zones who don't cry as much as Meghan Markle does. I mean, it's a bit like, what is she so tearful about all the time?
I just felt the timing was really, really poor taste last week. And whether that was Netflix or whether that was the Sussexes themselves, as you say, it really had the power to possibly overshadow that Earthshot trip to Boston. And it was embarrassing for the Waleses as they are now. And I do just feel sorry for, as you say, going about their business, trying to do their duty, and these little bombs going off.
I think it's embarrassing for the Sussexes, to be honest. I think they're embarrassing themselves with this.
But the timing of the release of the trailer has got us all talking about it, hasn't it? Because it did overshadow that video to Boston, but in terms of seizing the publicity and the agenda, they've succeeded in that.
If you were Netflix, you would be doing that. You'd be capitalising on the fact that, you know, William and Kate were there. Let's get it out there.
Let's have a look at the Express, Ben, should we? Migrants who enter Britain illegally could be permanently barred from settling here. Now, if this isn't a good idea to disrupt the illegal supply chain, if you like, of migrants and to stop these criminal gangs from trying to get people over, I don't know what is.
Well, there's a report that's out today from the centre-right think tank, the Centre for Policy Studies, and it's endorsed, or part of it is endorsed by the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, who said she'll do whatever it takes to stop the small boats coming over the channel. Well, you know, if you could stop this crisis by tough talking, then it would have been over under Priti Patel or even before that. The problem that campaigners who champion the rights of refugees and asylum seekers, what they say is there aren't enough legal routes for people to come to the UK. So if the only way they feel they can get to the United Kingdom is by getting on these inflatables on the beaches of northern France and Belgium, and then they're automatically going to be told, well, you've arrived illegally, so no, you're not claiming asylum. Well, then it's a bit of a difficult situation for them. How do they get here if they?
Well, they'll have to wait in what is a safe country until they can get the legal route through, won't they?
One of the other things in this is the CPS is suggesting is a 20,000 annual limit on asylum seekers that Britain would accept. Now, in terms of imposing a cap, that's quite an easy thing to do, because you could say stop, unless, of course, people are coming over in small boats. And, of course, what if the 20,001st person has a very good case for asylum? You know, if they are being persecuted in their home country, do you say, no, you're not coming?
Well, yeah, it's a very, very difficult area, isn't it? And obviously that arbitrary figure would be instantly blown out the water when it comes to the numbers of asylum seekers. That's what they are, essentially coming from Ukraine, from Hong Kong, which we've given refuge to through their problems. Yes. How much time have we got on papers? Have we got time for a couple more? I wonder whether to go to... OK, Dawn, let's go to the Star then. I love this. The key to cutting stress at Christmas. Number one tip, keep your mother-in-law out the kitchen. That's my number one tip, to keep stress down. Keep her in the kitchen. She's great.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, this is great. It's a bit of fun, and gosh, we need it, don't we? So, as you've mentioned, the tip to have a very happy Christmas is keep your mum-in-law out of the kitchen. As you say, if you've got a mum-in-law who's a very good cook, then get her in there. But also avoid all talk of politics.
Yeah.
Or sex.
Oh.
Right.
Yeah.
Discuss that.
And this is the one. This is the one a lot of us would be struggling.
Discuss that over Christmas dinner, do you?
Well, it depends what sort of cracker you pull in, love. Any case, but this is the bit that I think I might personally be struggling with. Not the sex thing, obviously. Avoid all the booze until the veg have been readied for the oven.
Yes. You're drunk before you've even got the oven up to temp.
It's Christmas Day. I don't even know where the oven is.
I've met your type before. Breakfast is a gin and tonic.
My one signature dish is a Bucks Fizz.
Oh, right. Oh,
it really is. I can make a really mean Bucks Fizz.
Right.
Yeah, but you don't drink, do you?
I don't drink, no. My body's a temple.
Slightly ruined one, but...
Ruined, yeah.
You too. It's hilarious. Little Punch and Judy show going on over here.
No, it's something I think you should drink so much. You should have a lifetime quota on alcohol. I think I met mine by the time I was 30. So
Oh, really? Oh, I'd like to have known you then. I bet you were fascinating.
Yeah.
I'm making up for lost time, clearly. Listen, we have to leave it there. Dawn, Neeson, Ben Glaze, it's been a pleasure. Thank you both very much.
Thank
Indeed,
you.
we'll see you again very soon.
Oh, will we? Yeah. Oh, yes, we will. Anyway, now, on to a hotly anticipated Cold War drama. I love Cold War stuff.
Me too.
A Spy Amongst Friends airs later this week and tells the story of the most famous double agent in British history who spent decades passing sensitive information to the Russians.
Yes, the show is going to launch on the 8th of December on ITVX, and we can take a little sneak peek at the trailer.
Man I trusted most, and my best friend, was a Russian spy. Try to imagine how that might feel. You could say I'm not quite sure who to trust anymore.
Who outside our small circle of friends have you ever revealed your real self to?
Do you think Philby was playing you from the very first moment that you met?
To be clear, one of our own has done the unthinkable.
Oh, there you go. The story, we forgot to mention the introduction. It's the story's about Kim Philby.
Yeah, the most famous double agent of all time. Look, joining us now to talk about the upcoming series is journalist and author who's also written about Kim Philby in the Love and Deception, Philby in Beirut, about his years there, is James Hanning. Good morning to you. Welcome to the programme. Look, you've done lots of research, presumably, into this man. What is it about somebody who was around a long time ago, let's face it, still continues to pique our interest all these years later?
Yeah, it is amazing, Isabel, isn't it? It's extraordinary. I mean, it's 60, getting on for it's what 30 something years since he died, and we're still talking about him. It's an astonishing human story. I mean, when I did my research on his time in Beirut, which was the time just before he went to Russia, I spoke to a lot of people who'd known him, and they just said, we could not believe it. He was the loveliest, kindest, sweetest, gentlest guy you could possibly meet. He was also a bit of a drunk, and so they just couldn't believe he was a spy of any sort, because they thought, well, nobody can drink that much and keep his secrets, and yet he did. And it was, I mean, spies are a curious breed, but he was quite exceptional.
I mean, there is something just absolutely fascinating, and you can see why, I mean, Cold War thrillers and things, I mean, the staple of any sort of bookstore and bookshelf nowadays, aren't they? There is a fascination, isn't there, with just this level of deception, whether it's spies or double agents or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sort of human thing, isn't it? It's betrayal. I mean, betrayal in itself is fascinating. The idea of somebody keeping a secret and then and ratting on whatever his country or his friends or whatever. I mean, the thing that grabbed me about Philby's story, and as you say, it's a kind of universal fascination. But the thing that really grabbed me was his relationship with his wife, because he had this extraordinary love affair when he was in Beirut with the wife of somebody else, of course, so there was betrayal involved there. But his wife had absolutely no idea what he was up to. And one night they were invited to a dinner party, and he said, "Sorry, darling, I'll be a bit late," and he never turned up. And the reason he never turned up was he'd hopped on a boat and was on his way to Russia, and that's the night he defected. Now, for his wife to discover that and just say, well, why would he go to Russia? I don't understand. She had absolutely no idea. So in his case, there is a particularly sort of human dimension, it seems to me.
I suppose there's also sort of element of him sort of resembling what we imagine a spy to be like, certainly in the James Bond kind of machination of them, where, going through public school. I think he went to Westminster, didn't he? Then he went to Cambridge. His father was a famous adventurer, and all those amazing contacts. He just slipped from one network of high society into another, wherever he was around the world. Very James Bond-esque.
Well, yes. I mean, Stephen, you were talking about your body being a temple. I'm not sure Kim Philby's body was a temple. I mean, he was no kind of, he wasn't leaping from rooftop to rooftop. He was actually had a fairly sedentary time, and as I say, drank an awful lot and so on. But yeah, he was very socially accomplished. He was very polished. He could move in the smartest sort of circles, and everybody loved him. As I say, he was just a very amiable guy, and people would tell him their secrets, and he would chat away and be very, very, very gentle with them.
How much do you think he has been a template, if you like, for what we've seen portrayed fictionally since? You know, you think of people like George Smiley, you think of, I mean, it's big at the minute on Apple TV, I think, isn't it? The Slow Horses set of books that's all been televised and all that sort of thing. There is, he does seem to be this sort of template for a lot of these now fictional characters.
Yeah, well, that's right. And the Philby story was really traumatic for the security services. They just couldn't believe it. And so that cast a pall over, well, I suppose most of the post-war period. And yeah, and that was a big thing for novelists to pick up. As you say, Le Carré particularly was obsessed with the idea that, there might be, you know, if they found a mole, well, there might be one more, and we never know, you know, nobody quite knows when to stop.
Yeah, well, listen, James Hanning, we have to interrupt you. I'm so sorry. We don't want you to stop, but we have to bring that to an end and take a quick break. We'll be back after this. Thank you.
Hello there, it's Eamonn Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes & Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes & Kerr.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
There's a guy who went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Well, it's France next after England secured a place in the World Cup quarter-finals.
Good morning. It is 9 o'clock on Monday, the 5th of December. This is Breakfast on GB News with Isabel and Stephen.
This is what's leading the news for you this morning, and the Three Lions have made it through to the World Cup quarter-finals. Of course, now they have to face reigning champions France on Saturday. That 3-0 win against Senegal last night saw captain Harry Kane score his first goal of the tournament.
The Labour Party would make abolishing the House of Lords one of its top priorities if they win the next general election. Sir Keir Starmer's in Leeds, where he's setting out plans for the biggest ever transfer of power to the British people.
And the Prince and Princess of Wales have returned home after the inaugural Earthshot Awards, but we're asking if their trip to Boston was anything but a tea party, especially after the release of that Netflix trailer.
And we love to hear from you throughout the course of the morning. Get in touch via Twitter or email and let us know where you're watching or listening to as well. We like to have that little detail. So many emails coming in this morning, actually. Should we read a few?
Oh, go on then.
Go on then.
If now's the time.
Why not?
Steve, the retired firefighter, and I've always wanted to say this, you're a first-time caller, first-time emailer. He says, although I don't agree with firefighters having second jobs or striking, we don't have full sleep, so you must be a retired firefighter. It's more like resting. Who would they rather come to their rescue at 4 in the morning, a tired firefighter or one who is alert? That's us. Very fair point, Steve.
And Valerie on gambling says, I'll never forgive Gordon Brown for making gambling legal. He didn't care how many lives he ruined, as long as he could get his hands on more tax money. Well, successive governments haven't done anything to change that, so it's not necessarily just a Labour Party thing. Let us know your views this morning.
So the main news this morning, and quite rightly so, England have progressed to the World Cup quarter-finals after a comfortable, well, it ended up being comfortable, 3-0 victory over Senegal.
Yes, captain Harry Kane scored his first goal of the tournament, but really, it was 19-year-old Jude Bellingham who impressed with a man-of-the-match display in the hearts of the Three Lions midfield.
Gareth Southgate and his side now face their toughest tests yet, though we'll say that after every victory, of course. They're taking on the reigning world champions next, France, a place in the semi-finals at stake.
Well, let's speak to Chris Scudders, sports journalist and broadcaster, who joins us live from Doha this morning. Good to see you, Scudders. Listen, last night, the story of the night really was England just looking supreme. I mean, looking really strong. Once those first sort of 30 minutes or so of nail-biting was out of the way, they looked like the team to beat, to me.
This is, without a doubt, the strongest England squad has been for some time. When I say the strongest, you look at the bench. England are very good in that department, and Gareth Southgate knows it, and he's had the confidence now to kind of change that.
OK, Scudders, hang on in there. There's an
Italy.
issue with the sound coming through. It's a bit intermittent, so we'll have a tweak of that at our desk outside and see if we can get that sorted out. I mean, what was impressive, I think, with what we saw last night was the fact it was the unity in the team. And as Paul Coyte was saying earlier on, you look at Harry Kane, he may have scored his first goal of the World Cup, which is a good thing, what you want to see, but it's the way he was looking after setting so much up. Bellingham was, of course, setting stuff up, which was absolutely fantastic. And then those amazing goals. And once they started, they just seemed to keep going. didn't they?
It gets into nail-biting territory, though, now, because, of course, it means we're facing up to France, the world champions, on Saturday, 7 p.m. We've got to knock them out, haven't we, if we want to get all the way to the end?
Well,
we
yes.
do it? Of course we can. But the big question is, you know, have France got the players to beat us? Because it really looks as though, as you say, a very mature team, not just on the pitch, but in terms of the squad. Plenty left in the tank on the subs bench, which the French team can't say they have the same exactly. So that's our expert analysis.
That's our expert analysis. It's all down to Mbappe for the French, and if we can deal with Mbappe, then we might be all right. Look, we'll try and get hold of Scott maybe and try and get a little catch-up with him a little bit later on. If we've got time. He's a legend, is Chris Scudder. If you've not come across him before, absolute legend. Anyway, should we talk royals?
Oh, let's do that.
As we deal with our technology crashing
Yeah,
a
the
little
Prince
bit.
and Princess of Wales have now arrived back in the UK following that 3-day trip to the United States, where they announced the 5 winners of this year's Earthshot Prize. It was a star-studded, easy for you to say, event in Boston, of course.
Yeah, a little bit overshadowed, though, by that royal racism row at the palace and the release for Harry and Meghan's new documentary. And while we're impressed, it seems that they've only just flown out there and flown back. Our royal reporter, Cameron Walker, has done exactly the same thing. Good morning.
Good morning.
You're a little bit jet-lagged.
Just a bit.
Yes.
Landed back in London last night. Yesterday morning. So, yes, it was a brilliant trip. But as you can tell, I'm still very jet-lagged.
Excellent. Look, away from the Harry and Meghan stuff, just for a moment, how successful was the Earthshot Prize, the awards ceremony, do you think, for William and Catherine?
I think it actually depends which side of the Atlantic you're looking at it from. I think from the US's perspective, and certainly the final day of the Earthshot Prize ceremony, it was a huge success. But inevitably, the first 2 days were overshadowed by the 2 instances you mentioned, Stephen, the royal racism row and then the Harry and Meghan trailer. But from speaking to people on the grounds there, it was very much a celebration of William and Catherine and the environmental work that they were doing, and also looking at the media coverage even in the United States. There was hardly any mention of Harry and Meghan's trailer or indeed the royal racism rows. In fact, it was only in Britain really that was the dominating line, so it was interesting to see that.
OK, but I mean, that being said, it was a huge deal over here. You were obviously attending all the briefings over in the States as the Waleses arrived, and I understand that the team were absolutely devastated that their Earthshot Prize was being overshadowed by this row back home, and that was the first thing that was coming up in the briefings.
Yeah, it was. The first thing we were told was that we are going to try and ignore this royal racism row, ignore this Harry and Meghan documentary. We're focused solely on Earthshots. We're focused solely on our engagements, but inevitably they couldn't really, keep that line. I'm afraid. But they tried their best. But I think it was
carry on.
Yes, keep calm and carry on. But of course, it's months in the planning. This Earthshot Prize, this Boston engagement, and it was just completely overshadowed by 2 things totally out of Kensington Palace's control.
Yeah, I tell you what is interesting though is that perspective of what was happening stateside, because, and it'll infuriate Meghan, you should think, that once the Prince and Princess of Wales arrive, once the future King and future Queen arrive on the shores, they're overshadowed. Now that will drive them mad, won't it?
Perhaps, yes. I mean, we saw Prince William meet the President of the United States, and we had Caroline Kennedy, JFK's daughter, and her children attend the Earthshot Prize as well. So America's elite, if you like, meeting the Prince and Princess of Wales, the future King and Queen of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, unlike Harry and Meghan, who are mixing with Hollywood. And we have to question the timing of this Netflix documentary trailer dropping. It was, from my perspective and from speaking to everybody in that kind of field, it was clear that it was time to deliberately coincide with the Boston tour. Not necessarily Harry and Meghan themselves, but certainly Netflix or their PR teams.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be camera shy. I thought they were moving to the West Coast to get away from the prying eyes. And then, in her own words, Meghan saying, when the stakes are this high, who better to hear it from than from us? When are we going to be hearing from
Why are the stakes high?
Well, I think the problem is that all these arguments and all these grievances we've heard before, haven't we? We had the Oprah interview back in 2021, but I think public sympathy, perhaps, with some of the arguments or complaints they are making are wearing very thin. And if you looked at the trailer, we've seen in The Sun, I think it was this morning, that paparazzi photograph still that was in the trailer where Harry says in the voiceover, "I had to do what I could to protect my family." It's now turned out that a photography picture was actually from a Harry Potter premiere from 2011, 5 years before Harry and Meghan met. I think that's perhaps more of a clumsy picture research rather than any kind of attempts to deceive the British public. But it does perhaps, as Ingrid Seward said in The Sun, weaken Harry's arguments that there was a genuine problem that he needed to protect his family.
Yeah. OK, Cameron, thank you very much indeed. Let's just quickly whisk you back to Qatar and Scudders, who's still there for us. Chris, before the line went down, what we were trying to say to you about the football last night is this unity within the team, actually, seems something we really haven't seen on this level before.
Yeah, you look at all the former England managers. I remember Fabio Capello in South Africa and Sven, Goran Eriksson, Steve McLaren, all those managers, they never really, you know, it was interesting. Steven Gerrard and Frank Lampard were asked, the golden generation, why did we never win anything? We had fantastic players, but they admitted there were kind of cliques between the different clubs, and they sort of sat on different tables. And we never really knew that. We all assumed that it was great, one big happy family, but it wasn't like that, you know, that the Premier League is so dominant that the clubs had different factions, and there wasn't that unity, which seems to have melted away now. There's still that great passion for club football, where, you know, that still exists. But when they come together for England, Gareth Southgate has really been able to unify everybody, and that's really apparent now, and that's being reflected on the field. And also Gareth Southgate's had the sort of confidence to be able to throw off the shackles, those defensive shackles that have held England back. You remember what happened in the Euros last year. England should have beaten Italy in that final. Went a goal up, went into their shell, and eventually lost it. Same thing happened in the World Cup semi-final against Croatia. Goal up, lost it to a side they shouldn't have lost to. So it's there's a confidence a return now, and slowly as we're going through this tournament, England have done what we expected them to. Let's be honest. Iran, Wales, and the USA and Senegal, all sides that England would expect to beat. They've drawn one and won 3 of those. Now it gets a little bit more complicated because they're up against the big teams. You look at who's left in. Argentina, I know they lost to Saudi Arabia, but they're there. Brazil are there. They're on the other side of the draw. So England cannot play Argentina or Brazil until the final. On this side of the draw, France next, the world champions. Massive hurdle for England to overcome. They've got the world's best player at the moment, Kylian Mbappe probably. But let me tell you something, the French are going to be looking at England and thinking, that's a very good side. They know that England are to be feared. And in the past, people look at England and they say, oh, that's the team that always implodes somewhere along the way. There's always a disaster somewhere along the way. I think we've got that baggage out of the way now, and France, massive hurdle, get over that, and Spain on the same side as well if they get past Morocco in this World Cup of shocks. But you just get that feeling at the moment, and you can sense it around the place. The England fans know it, but there are a lot of neutrals here who are starting to follow England. I was in the stadium last night, and it felt like half the subcontinent was there. A lot of Indian fans. I was sitting next to a lad from Thailand who was loving it with his camera out there, all the selfies and all the rest of it. So, you know, there's a real sense of momentum at the moment, and it's going to be such a huge occasion at the weekend, and a game that there's absolutely no reason why England cannot win.
Yeah, and you know, that in itself a source of pride, isn't it? That our reputation now is making people think twice about, you know, they've got to take us seriously.
Yeah, quite right.
Take us seriously, Scudders. Thank you.
Really good to see.
We're standing, walking through your shop there as well. Yeah. Just for extra spice.
Well, he's in the...
It's a pleasure. I should shake his hand, shouldn't I?
You should have done, yeah.
All part of the mix.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Love it. Love it.
Oh,
I never thought I'd say that.
I'm nervous now. I can't bear it. So.
Well, if you need your nerves calming, Isabel, when it comes to... We've got a sport expert coming on.
Yeah, Andrew Pearce.
Andrew Pearce. What he doesn't know about football isn't worth knowing. He'll be here in a couple of minutes.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel. Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8". My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Oh, it's high-level football analysis that's been going on in the advert break here. We are joined by the consultant editor of the Daily Mail, Andrew Pearce.
Yes, I know so much about football. Who played last night? Oh, yes, we won 3-0.
Yes, we did.
No, in all seriousness, we did have an email a little bit earlier on. We've had so many, I don't know where it is. We said, I don't care about the World Cup. There are a few people who aren't into it, so I'd just like to say hello to those people because, you know...
I mean, I want us to win, and I think it'd be great for the national mood. It'll cheer everybody
it's
up.
just what we need.
We do.
A win. Can you imagine?
Particularly, it'd be great to beat France in the next round. Mr. Macron, President Macron. And I cheered when Germany were out, so I am paying attention.
Once you can bring politics into it, you're happy.
Exactly. But I haven't.
You're vindictive with it.
Here's a question, though. If we get to the final, does Keir Starmer stick to his guns and say no Labour frontbencher should be in Qatar? And will the Prime Minister go? The Prime Minister will certainly go.
Do you think?
Yeah.
I don't think he will.
I think he will.
He said that the Qataris had played a blinder, didn't he, on social media, and he's been getting a bit of trouble.
Didn't the Foreign Secretary fly out there for a match?
I don't know. Well, he also said gay people should modify their behaviour. As a gay guy, I wouldn't want to go to a hideous country which doesn't even think people like me and Stephen should exist.
I would agree with that. No, it was Keith in Southampton.
That was it.
Not all your viewers are interested in the World Cup. I'm definitely not. The sooner England are knocked out, the better.
No,
that's a bit miserable,
not
Keith.
Right. That's not right. We want them to do well.
Yeah.
And
it looks like they are.
Yeah.
So, right, that's that done.
Did you know Senegal had a football team? I didn't.
Of course I did. Senegal's got fantastic.
Right.
African Cup of Nations champions and all that, aren't they?
Oh, all right, then.
Come on. Harry and Meghan, did you know they've got a documentary out?
I did. And I did. Now, some friends of mine say they're not going to watch it on principle because they don't want to give this couple any more publicity. The more people who watch it, it means the more money they earn. But you've got to watch it because it's our job.
Well, I'll watch The Crown, followed straight after by the Harry and Meghan miniseries, and I guarantee Wills and Kate will watch it as well.
But you know,
Of course they will.
But Mail Online have got this great story today, which is going to be followed everywhere. So in the trailer, which some of us have watched, and to which I said on Friday when I saw it the first time, yuck, because that's the impact it had on me. On the trailer, they've got this picture of the paparazzis presumably harassing Meghan Markle. It was a scene from 2011 at the Harry Potter premiere when J.K. Rowling and the stars were there. Meghan and Harry hadn't even met. Now, this blooming Netflix thing is all about telling her truth, as she puts it.
There you go, that's the shot.
They can't even tell the truth in the trailer. It doesn't augur well. Now, you could say that was down to the picture editors of Netflix, but it's their product, it's in their name, and they're being paid millions for it. It doesn't augur well, does it?
When you have a family that's, motto is never complain, never explain, and keep calm and carry on, how many shots was Meghan crying in just 10 seconds?
Pathetic. Pathetic. What's she crying about? Well, she had quite a nice life, gilded life, but it wasn't the palaces she expected. She thought it was going to be like a fairy tale.
Oh, yeah. But it's the line about, when the stakes are this high.
Yeah, what stakes?
Well, what stakes?
Is she in a casino? Is she gambling for her future?
She'll say she's challenging structural racism within the monarchy, and she'll feel vindicated, won't she, after what happened in the palace last week?
Yeah, she will. Look, I feel very sorry for Lady Hussey. I'm not sure if I'm meant to say that, but I do.
Well, no, you can do. And as I said this yesterday on the show, and I'll say it again, if you haven't watched the monologue from Nana Acquia on Saturday night...
It was brilliant.
It's on Twitter. Well, perhaps she says stuff that we can't.
Yes,
right?
she's a black woman.
She's black and we're white. But I thought what she said was very powerful, actually.
It was. And the point about... What's that woman called? Miss Muzfalani? Her charity. Her charity... only supports victims of domestic violence if they're of African or Caribbean heritage. So if a black woman turns up there, she's going to ask them, where are you from? Wasn't that the whole problem with Lady Hussey? Where are you from? She appeared to be dressed in traditional costume. Even more reason you might ask, where are you from?
Well, look, King Charles has reached out his hand to Ngozi Fulani, hasn't he? And he said he'd like to meet her. And, he's doing everything he can to not let this overshadow the good work that the royal family do and to try and move forward.
They shouldn't have thrown Lady Hussey under a bus, though. After 2 hours, they didn't investigate it properly. The other thing I'm still curious about, how has Ms Fulani got such a brilliant verbatim recollection of every word that was exchanged between her and Susan Hussey in a 5-minute conversation? Because there was full stops, semicolons. There was no tape.
Well, unless there was a tape.
Well, I think we should see it.
But in which case you...
Let's hear it.
Well, there wasn't a denial from Lady Hussey, to be fair. She did come out and apologise, but I'm sure she's absolutely mortified. And as many people we spoke to on Thursday morning said, her name will now forever be associated with racism, and her long, distinguished career of serving Her Majesty the Queen, all, blown up.
Her husband was a war hero, Duke Hussey, chaired the BBC. He's in The Crown. So, not that I'm watching The Crown anymore either.
Oh, good. We'll be watching Titanic this Christmas.
No, but I'm very amused by this story that James Cameron, who directed it, said the film traumatised Kate Winslet, which it made her name. Pretty much traumatised me. It was so awful. And why did it win all those Oscars?
I saw it multiple times.
Oh,
I was on a French exchange at the time and went and watched it in the cinema in France a few times.
Did you really?
Yeah.
I couldn't stand it. And the whole idea that DiCaprio was going to get from the very basement of the Titanic with the most working class people, end up with the VIPs
Real
on
man
the top.
makes his own luck.
Oh, my God, it was just so implausible and ridiculous.
I'm afraid I've never seen it.
Well, don't bother.
I wanted to see it, but then someone where I was working at the time said, oh, it's really good until that bit where Leonardo DiCaprio dies at the end.
I laughed at that.
And I was just like,
well, that's giving it away.
I know.
I know. Well, it was forbidden love that was never going to be allowed to happen. It was like Romeo and Juliet. star-crossed lovers.
But Kate Winslet switched out Leonardo DiCaprio, the biggest Lothario in Hollywood, and swapped in her daughter and done this sort of show about the harms of the internet.
She's
become
very
a bit of a
powerfully too,
spokesperson.
very powerfully, because she speaks like any mum, whether you're a major Hollywood star like her or anybody else. They worry about what their kids are watching on their phones and on their devices, and she's calling on the government to make sure this video online bill screens out harmful stuff. But it's very difficult because the current proposal is if you're over 18, the harmful stuff can still be there. If you're under 18, it won't be. The video giants don't know the difference.
No.
And how do you... Where's the filter?
Yeah.
It's very difficult.
If not impossible.
I think they're publishers, but they regard themselves as platforms.
Yeah.
You're a publisher. You're under Ofcom rules.
Yeah.
Newspapers, we're under newspaper rules.
Yeah.
But Facebook can do what they like.
Getting away with murder.
We're under timing rules, Andrew, which means you've got to stop talking.
I'm looking forward to seeing you on Thursday.
I shall
Nice of
see
you
you
to
on
pop in, by the way. Where have you been? Where have you been?
I'm on this channel, morning, noon, night, I'll have you know.
Did you have a nice holiday?
Thank you very much, Andrew. Go away. Thank you. We're back. No, I'm not.
No, you're
I've got a day off
not. I'm
tomorrow.
back from 6. Andrew's back with me on Thursday. Stephen's back on Friday. But up next is Emily Carver. She has the briefing. Have a wonderful Monday. Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking to be largely cloudy, but it will feel chilly in the brisk easterly breeze. Let's take a look at the details. So areas in the far southwest of England may see the odd brighter spell, but the cloud will make it a grey day for most. Showers will also fringe southern coasts. A slight shift in the wind direction will bring the increasing risk of showers across southeast England. Otherwise, it's largely cloudy but feeling cold. And cloudy but a little light rain is possible for parts of Wales. This may include a small amount of sleet over the mountains. Cold and cloudy across central areas of England, but with the wind swinging around to more of a northeasterly, there is an increasing risk of a few light showers here and there later. It's eastern coasts that will see the most frequent showers today, the occasional one of which may be heavy. They'll feed inland on the brisk breeze, so it is worth holding on to an umbrella there. The showers and cloud will also push into eastern Scotland. However, northwest Scotland will likely see the brightest skies across the whole of the UK, thanks to the development of some sunny intervals. Western counties of Northern Ireland are also in with a chance of seeing some sunny spells today, but eastern coasts will be affected by isolated showers from the Irish Sea. So we will retain a very similar setup through Monday afternoon and evening, with showers chiefly in the east, and that's how the weather is shaping up for the rest of the day.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you.